Chapter 1059. If a Fae wanted to evolve to the limit, it would need to strive to do its best at every stage of growth. The amount of resources needed to do the best job was unimaginable to ordinary people. This was also why experts with extremely high spiritual power often only nurtured a few signature Faes instead of relying on their massive spiritual power to contract a sea of Faes for combat. Even so, the source-type item, the Wind Crystal Treasure Bottle, which could increase one's mental strength, had an inestimable value. On the other hand, the prerequisites for contracting the source-type Wind Crystal Aquarius were also very easy. The Wind Crystal Aquarius was a Wind-type source-type item, and its Wind attribute willpower was the best choice. Those who had comprehended the willpower rune could directly sign a contract with the Wind Crystal Aquarius. This meant that the Wind Crystal Aquarius contract didn't have any prerequisites. There were many source-type items in the world, and it was probably because of these two reasons that the Wind Crystal Treasure Bottle was qualified to be included in the Myriad Source Hall's top 10 source-type items list. Although the Wind Crystal Aquarius vase was not for sale by the Myriad Origin Hall in the 10 Great Source Treasures list, it was not for sale. But when the price was high enough, there was nothing in this world that wouldn't sell. Of course, he would not use his identity to forcefully propose a deal with Whale Ocean Trade. He planned to mention it to Zhong Zhe when he met with Gu Lang, Gao Feng, Long Tao, and the others tomorrow. He wanted Zhong Zhe to help him establish a connection with the Whale Ocean Trading Company. Then, he would exchange for the source-type item, the Wind Crystal Aquarius, from the Whale Ocean Trading Company. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan recalled that his master's contracted Cold Moon Lone Wheel was similar to the Wind Crystal Aquarius. It was a rare source-type item. When you leave the Wind Crystal Aquarius to me. After I get the Wind Crystal Aquarius, I still have a lot of Wind Elemental Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. The Aeolian Aquarius bottle uses the wind element to transform it into a nourishing effect for mental power. The quality of the energy is also determined by the purity of the wind element. With the Wind Elemental Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls, the effects of your spiritual power will increase even faster. Upon hearing that, Wen Yu smiled in relief. Wen Yu felt that no matter what she said to him, he would be able to help her solve it in the end. She would always feel at ease by Lin Yuan's side. Wen Yu might be Lin Yuan's maidservant, but she was also Mystic Moon's disciple. Wen Yu's identity meant that she was nobler than the disciples of the top force's younger generation. Actually, even if Wen Yu wasn't Xian Yu's disciple, she was just a spirit attendant. When they encountered disciples of top forces outside, they would also need to salute her. While speaking, the Divine Travel Black Swallow had already brought them to the entrance of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association. On the Divine Travel Black Swallow's back, Lin Yuan realized that the Royal Capital's Creation Master Guild, which was usually quiet, was unexpectedly noisy. When he looked down from the Divine Travel Black Swallow's back, he frowned. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Lin Yuan did not expect to encounter Zheng Kaiyuan here. In a short week, Lin Yuan had encountered Zheng Kaiyuan 3 times. And every time Zheng Kaiyuan appeared, it would be accompanied by a storm. The previous 2 times he had met Zheng Kaiyuan, he had used his identity as the Moon Empress disciple. Now, he needed to face Zheng Kaiyuan as the Sky City Lord. Zheng Kaiyuan's side was facing Lin Yuan with an enraged expression. Zheng Kaiyuan was followed by a person who looked like a follower. However, at a glance, it was obvious that this follower was wearing expensive clothes. The man's light green shirt was embedded with a few green and translucent olivines. If the olivines on this shirt were to be auctioned in the Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion, they would probably be sold for a high price of 500,000 Radiance dollars. Just from the clothes, it was obvious that the man next to Zheng Kaiyuan had an extraordinary identity. But why would such a person stay by Zheng Kaiyuan's side and fawn over him? While thinking, Lin Yuan's brows were already frowning. Zheng Kaiyuan was just a disciple of a veteran faction in Indigo Azure City. In the complicated royal capital, Zheng Kaiyuan's identity was not considered much. For Zheng Kaiyuan to attract such a person dressed so nobly to fawn on him, it was certainly not because of him. Lin Yuan felt that it was impossible to say that it was because of the Miao family. Putting aside the fact that the Miao family had taken a liking to Zheng Kaiyuan, it was his intention. Back then, he had deliberately left Zheng Kaiyuan his phone number at the Dark Knight Assembly, allowing Zheng Kaiyuan to rise in the Miao family. If others wanted to fawn on the Miao family, they could just fawn on Miao He, who had just risen in power. There was no need to win over Zheng Kaiyuan. Presumably, Zheng Kaiyuan had used his banner to flaunt outside, which was why the green-clothed man was standing beside him like an attendant. At that moment, the green-clothed man was helping Zheng Kaiyuan kick the tall human figure that was lying on the ground and was trying hard not to groan. This tall human figure was wrapped in a huge black robe that could fit 3 people at the same time. Even if there were always people cleaning the entrance of the royal capital's Creation Master Guild, it was inevitable that the human figure would be covered in dust when lying on the ground. The human figure under the black robe looked a little wretched as it struggled. There were at least 20 footprints on the black robe. The green-clothed man must have kicked the black-robed human figure at least 20 times. Lin Yuan and Wen Yu had already gotten off the divine travel Black Swallow, while Endless Summer stood in the crowd and casually watched the show. Endless Summer, who was facing Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, saw them at a glance. After seeing the masks on Lin Yuan and Wen Yu's faces, Endless Summer was startled. Endless Summer did not expect Lin Yuan to wear Sky City's mask when helping someone else's Fae through the world cleansing. Therefore, Endless Summer did not wear the mask that represented Sky City's identity in advance. Now that Zheng Kaiyuan was standing here, he had already seen his appearance. If Endless Summer wore a mask, it would be like painting a snake with legs. Therefore, Endless Summer simply walked in front of Lin Yuan openly. Lin Yuan did not want to have a conflict with Zheng Kaiyuan at the entrance of the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. After the Blood Oath Extreme Duel, one of the 3 veteran factions in Indigo Azure City, the Zheng family, would no longer exist. That would be the best time to deal with Zheng Kaiyuan. Just as Lin Yuan was about to take out his phone to call Yukio's complaint of calamity, Zheng Kaiyuan stepped on the face of the person in the black robe lying on the ground. This foot seemed to have stepped on the nose, causing the human figure under the black robe to let out 2 painful groans. Lin Yuan had not heard it clearly from afar, but now that he was close, he immediately heard that the person under the black robe was Yukio's complaint of calamity. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan immediately stepped forward and pushed aside the green-clothed man, who was about to kick the human figure in the black robe again. Then he raised his elbow and hit Zheng Kaiyuan's ribs, knocking Zheng Kaiyuan to the side. End of this chapter. Chapter 1060. Thinking about it, Ji Feng's current situation was the same as when he was on the phone with him. However, the interval between his call and now was definitely not more than half an hour. Half an hour of torture, wasn't it a little too fast? After sensing that Ji Feng, who was rolling on the ground, had stopped trembling, he didn't care about the dust on Ji Feng's black robe. He reached out and supported Ji Feng's arm. When he supported Ji Feng's arm, he was immediately startled because he felt that the arm he was supporting seemed to be full of thorns. When he pressed down, the thorns under the skin seemed to move faintly as though they had a life of their own. When he helped Ji Feng up, Zheng Kaiyuan's expression turned abnormally gloomy. He looked at Lin Yuan with a ruthless gaze. Zheng Kaiyuan had come to the royal capital's Creation Master Guild today because his mother, Miao Ji, would be rushing over in a while. Zheng Kaiyuan wanted to go to the Creation Master Guild and find a Creation Master that he had an appointment with beforehand to trade a few rare gems for Miao Ji's gift. However, he didn't expect to encounter a man who was hidden under a black robe at the entrance of the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. He even pressed on Zheng Kaiyuan's body while he was defenseless, causing him to stagger and nearly fall to the ground. Fortunately, he was supported by the person who had come with him, so he didn't make a fool of himself. The person's elbow attack made Zheng Kaiyuan feel half of his body faintly numb, and the numbness was accompanied by intense pain. When Zheng Kaiyuan saw the appearance of the nosy person, he realized that this person was actually wearing a mask with the majestic Sky City's pattern. Zheng Kaiyuan was simply too familiar with this mask. The new and old hatred surged in his heart, causing his brain to rapidly surge with blood. If it wasn't because this was the royal capital, Zheng Kaiyuan would have disregarded everything and attacked Lin Yuan. The green-clothed man beside Zheng Kaiyuan didn't have a good expression after being pushed. However, the green-clothed man didn't flare up immediately. Instead, he looked at Zheng Kaiyuan. He wanted to see how Zheng Kaiyuan would deal with the current situation so that he could follow Zheng Kaiyuan's intentions and curry favor with him. In the end, the green-clothed man discovered that Zheng Kaiyuan did not immediately attack, which surprised the green-clothed man. The green-robed man carefully looked at Zheng Kaiyuan's expression and immediately confirmed that Zheng Kaiyuan and the young man wearing the majestic sky mask knew each other. At this moment, the green-clothed man heard Zheng Kaiyuan say through gritted teeth, "Hee, I didn't expect the Lord of Sky City to attack someone in the royal capital." "What does the Lord of Sky City mean? I need you to give me an explanation." Currently, his grandfather had yet to arrive in the capital, even though the Zheng family had already held a meeting to confirm this blood oath extreme battle. However, his grandfather was the head of the Zheng family. If his grandfather wasn't here, he wouldn't be able to apply for a blood oath extreme battle. Since they were going to carry out the blood oath extreme battle, it was reasonable to say that the new and old grudges should wait until the blood oath extreme battle to be settled with life and death. However, Zheng Kaiyuan, who had suffered a blow, did not intend to let the matter rest. Upon hearing Zheng Kaiyuan's words, Lin Yuan replied, "You just hit my people. You should be the one to give me an explanation." His words made Ji Feng, who was being helped up by him, tremble slightly as though his heart had been touched by these words. Zheng Kaiyuan was so angry that he laughed. Just as Zheng Kaiyuan was about to open his mouth to curse, the green-clothed man had already taken the initiative to speak first. "It was your people who bumped into young Master Zheng first, causing him to almost fall. Why don't the two of you listen to my advice and let this matter go? I also kicked your people a few times just now to help young Master Zheng. I'd like to apologize first. I'm willing to compensate accordingly." Sky City had long become a topic of discussion on StarWeb. The green-clothed man had naturally heard of Sky City, and his clan would send people to spend Radiance dollars to draw Sky City's fate letter every day. They hoped to get the opportunity to customize a bronze/epic Fey according to the willpower rune. The green-clothed man was called Rong Fei, and he came from the Rong family, a pinnacle faction, Molten Fire Ranch. The pinnacle faction, Molten Fire Pasture, nurtured a large number of fire element spiritual ingredients and Feys. The Rong family's Molten Fire Pasture was considered a bottom-tier existence among the pinnacle factions and had always been on par with Gao Feng's Gao family. In recent years, the Gao family had been thinking about developing the resources under the sea and had gained a lot. In addition, His Excellency Cicada Cry had accepted Gao Feng as a disciple during the Nix conference, causing the entire Gao family to rise in status. The Rong family was very envious. The Abyss world had opened, and it would produce a large number of fire element spiritual ingredients. The increase in fire element spiritual ingredients would definitely have a huge impact on the pinnacle faction, Molten Fire Pasture. The increase in fire element spiritual ingredients in the market would cause their prices to plummet, causing the resources controlled by Molten Fire Pasture to decrease by several times. Right now, it was time for the Molten Fire Pasture to save itself and seek a transformation. Therefore, Rong Fei, as a core member of the Molten Fire Pasture's younger generation, would curry favor with Zheng Kaiyuan, who came from a veteran faction, just for a chance to speak to the Moon Empress disciple. After a few days of contact, Rong Fei was extremely disgusted with Zheng Kaiyuan. Compared to the illusory chance to get to know the Moon Empress disciple by currying favor with Zheng Kaiyuan, Sky City's creation master resources were more practical. After thinking it through, Rong Fei was obviously with Zheng Kaiyuan, but he was siding with Sky City. He even expressed his sincerity in apologizing and compensating for the previous few kicks. It could be said that when Rong Fei said these words, he had already lowered his status in order to give Zheng Kaiyuan and Lin Yuan a way out. In Rong Fei's opinion, even if there was a conflict, they could settle it privately. They were all respectable people, and it was not good to cause trouble in front of the royal capital's creation master guild. While Rong Fei was speaking, Lin Yuan took 2 more glances at him. Before Lin Yuan could say anything, Zheng Kaiyuan sneered and said, "Let it go? Let it go? How do you want to let it go? Sky City's head is so hard. Aren't you afraid that it will be smashed and a disaster will befall you? Upon hearing Zheng Kaiyuan's words, Rong Fei's face immediately darkened. Rong Fei did not expect Zheng Kaiyuan to completely ignore the way he had used his face to give him a way out. Since Zheng Kaiyuan wanted to cause trouble and did not give him face, Rong Fei thought that he might as well help Zheng Kaiyuan add fuel to the fire. He wanted to see what Zheng Kaiyuan could do and also test Sky City's confidence. Yes, young Master Zheng knows the Moon Empress disciple. I heard that he even invited Lord Lin Yuan to have a meal at the Spirit Food Pavilion not long ago. End of this chapter. Chapter 1061. Rong Fei's words made Wen Yu and Endless Summer's expressions turn strange. They looked at Zheng Kaiyuan as though they were looking at a fool. When Zheng Kaiyuan heard Rong Fei's words that did not match the facts, he did not refute and raised his head instead. His aura suddenly became more arrogant, as though Rong Fei's words had added some kind of halo to Zheng Kaiyuan. Lin Yuan's eyes were cold, but he asked Zheng Kaiyuan with a teasing tone. Oh, he had a meal with the Moon Empress disciple? That's interesting. I wonder if Lin Yuan knows that he had a meal with you? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zheng Kaiyuan's expression changed slightly, and an inconspicuous guilty expression flashed across his face. However, Zheng Kaiyuan quickly straightened his neck again. It was impossible for someone to personally look for the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan, to confirm such a matter. That day at the royal capital's Spirit Food Pavilion, he had indeed stood with Lin Yuan, and Lin Yuan was willing to listen to him. He had chatted with him for several minutes. Anyway, the words came out of Rong Fei's mouth, not his. Even if someone asked, he just had to change the topic and not admit it. While Zheng Kaiyuan was thinking, he heard Lin Yuan continue speaking. The Sky City's imminent disaster is even more interesting. Is it because of you? The Sky City's head is not very iron, but not anyone can break it. When Rong Fei heard Lin Yuan's words, he felt that this youth wearing the majestic Sky City's patterned mask had a majestic confidence in his words. His words were like a mountain, and each sentence was dragged by the earth. It was not weak at all. His words did not have any intention of putting Zheng Kaiyuan in his eyes at all. Rong Fei even had an illusion that when he mentioned Lin Yuan, this youth wearing the majestic Sky City's patterned mask seemed to be more familiar with him than Zheng Kaiyuan. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's mockery, Zheng Kaiyuan could not hold it in anymore. The moment he opened his mouth, two unusually classic curses came out. However, before Zheng Kaiyuan could curse a second time, Lin Yuan stepped forward and swung his fist, hitting Zheng Kaiyuan's mouth. After going through the silver stamen gold luster Kasha Nectar's baptism, Lin Yuan's physical body's toughness had almost reached the limits of humans. In addition, he had mastered almost all the combat techniques and martial arts moves in the Star Web and the Hidden Moon Pavilion through the muscle memory grass's roots. As a result, the punch he had just thrown was not light. Zheng Kaiyuan was thrown to the ground by Lin Yuan's punch. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had fallen to the ground, covered his mouth with his hand, and his eyes became dazed. He seemed to have been stunned by Lin Yuan's sudden punch. After a moment, Zheng Kaiyuan came back to his senses and looked at Lin Yuan with eyes filled with madness and resentment. Zheng Kaiyuan's mouth was numb, but through his tongue, Zheng Kaiyuan felt that more than half of his teeth had fallen out from the punch. This time, Zheng Kaiyuan did not bring any experts with him. Looking at Wen Yu and Endless Summer, Zheng Kaiyuan did not dare to take the initiative to start a conflict. Zheng Kaiyuan could only wait for the blood oath duel to begin in Sky City. Zheng Kaiyuan, whose hatred for Lin Yuan and Sky City had reached the peak, decided that even if he had to beg, he would ask his grandfather for an Emperor-class expert to hold the line. He had to ensure that all the Sky City experts participating in the blood oath duel died. After the punch, Lin Yuan helped Ji Feng, Endless Summer, and Wen Yu into the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. He was going to open a breeding room and take a look at the exact situation of the floating world's complaint. He also wanted to understand why the two contracted Fays were so delicate that they could not even withstand a single blow from the world cleansing. After Lin Yuan entered the Creation Master Guild, Zheng Kaiyuan got up from the ground. When he turned around, Zheng Kaiyuan found that Rong Fei, who had been following him, had disappeared. After seeing Zheng Kaiyuan not fighting back immediately after receiving a blow, Rong Fei gave up the intention of befriending Zheng Kaiyuan. Rong Fei did not see the slightest trace of manliness in Zheng Kaiyuan. Rong Fei did not believe that the Moon Empress disciple would like someone that even he did not like. Seeing that Sky City's city lord did not intend to pursue the matter, it was not a good opportunity for him to get to know Sky City's city lord. Rong Fei left the entrance of the royal capital's Creation Master Guild and was going to find a few girls to invite a few friends to continue being his young master Rong. Zheng Kaiyuan grumbled and spat out half of his teeth. He then waved his hand to summon his flying Fei. When he stood on the flying Fei's back, Zheng Kaiyuan took a few glances at the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. Each glance was more resentful and crazy than the last. After a few glances, Zheng Kaiyuan headed toward the Beast Creation Garden without looking back. He did not even need to care about the Creation Master who had previously made an appointment to trade rare gems. After entering the Creation Master Guild, he used the Class 2 Creation Master's standard crest and smoothly opened a breeding room for Class 2 Creation Masters. Ji Feng, who had been coveted by Lin Yuan for a moment, could now stand up straight. Ji Feng thanked Lin Yuan in a hoarse and dry voice. At the same time, he helped himself to the staircase in the corridor. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan did not continue to support Ji Feng and slowed down. It allowed the exhausted Ji Feng to keep up with Lin Yuan's pace. When Lin Yuan slowed down, Wen Yu and Endless Summer immediately knew his intention. No matter who it was, Lin Yuan seemed to be able to understand others' difficulties. He would also inadvertently reveal his gentle side. This Lin Yuan was truly beautiful and charming. Wen Yu and Endless Summer also slowed down with Lin Yuan's pace. When Ji Feng staggered up the staircase with the help of the staircase, he lifted his head to look at Lin Yuan's back. His pale and weak face revealed a smear of deep gratitude. Ever since the sudden change, Ji Feng could not remember how long it had been since someone treated him as one of their own. As an Emperor-class expert, Ji Feng was also an all-powerful figure before the sudden change. If he encountered a veteran faction's disciple like Zheng Kaiyuan who punched and kicked him, Ji Feng could simply make a move and kill him. The strongest expert in Indigo Azure City's veteran faction, the Zheng family, was only a pinnacle Emperor-class expert. Even if Ji Feng could not defeat a pinnacle Emperor-class expert with a pinnacle suzerain/myth 3 Fei, with his 2 special Feis, Ji Feng could easily obtain the protection of a pinnacle faction. However, all of this was in the distant past. Ji Feng, whose body had become like this, would not dare to use his spiritual energy to summon his 2 Feis unless he encountered a life-and-death situation. Once Ji Feng used his spiritual energy, that unknown thing in his body would act. Once that thing in his body acted, Ji Feng would receive 3 layers of pain from his body, mind, and soul. End of this chapter. Chapter 1062. In fact, Ji Feng had found Lin Yuan through the trade news on StarWeb because he had endured this life without hope for a long time. He wanted to take a gamble and see if his 2 Feis could help him suppress that terrifying thing in his body when they reached Myth 3. If it really did not work, Ji Feng could rely on his 2 Myth 3 Feis to do things that he could not do before but had to do. Logically speaking, Ji Feng's 2 Feis had reached Myth 2, and they should be able to transform into human form. The humanoid Fei could stay by Ji Feng's side and protect him in reality. It was a pity that Ji Feng's 2 Feis were plant species and could only transform into human form at Myth 3. Ji Feng, who had fallen from the clouds for a long time and felt the pain of the mortal world, had forgotten how long it had been since he had felt the warmth of human nature. Lin Yuan's my man was like a beam of light that illuminated Ji Feng's gloomy and dusty heart. At that moment, the youth wearing the majestic Sky City's pattern had slowed down his pace, which was the most gentle respect for him. After the 4 of them entered the Class 2 Creation Master's breeding room, Lin Yuan picked up the hot tea that the Creation Master Association had prepared in advance and poured 4 cups. He handed 1 cup to Endless Summer and 1 to Wen Yu before handing the 3rd cup to Ji Feng. After Ji Feng took the tea, Lin Yuan picked up the teacup and took a sip. He, who was used to drinking the Manor's 3 treasures tea and cinnamon peony tea, found it a little difficult to drink the reception tea prepared by the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association, even though the Creation Master Association's reception tea was expensive outside. Many people even wanted to spend a high price to request for the reception tea in the Creation Master Association's breeding room through the Creation Master Association's Creation Master Association. However, Lin Yuan, who was used to precious spirit tea, tasted the reception tea that ordinary people regarded as treasures. He could easily point out at least 7 or 8 shortcomings of the reception tea with just one taste. Unknowingly, Lin Yuan now had the ability of a tea master. He had not deliberately learned this ability, but he had subtly grasped it in his daily life. However, Ji Feng had not drunk this spirit tea for a long time, which made it difficult for Lin Yuan to drink. Smelling the fragrance of the tea, Ji Feng's taste buds recalled the familiar taste that he used to dislike. Ji Feng, who had been holding the teacup for a while, did not drink the spirit tea in the cup. Instead, he spoke in a dry and hoarse voice. "Thank you, my lord." Ji Feng's dry and hoarse voice sounded muffled when he said the 3 words, "Thank you." It was as if he had been wronged. Upon hearing Ji Feng's thanks, Lin Yuan raised his brows. "I didn't know about your condition beforehand. If I knew that your body was abnormal, I wouldn't have asked you to gather at the entrance of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association. All right, now that there are no outsiders in the house, you can take off the heavy robe you're wearing." Upon hearing that, Ji Feng's hand that was holding the teacup suddenly clenched tightly. "Sir, my skin is a little ugly. If I take it off, it might scare you." Wen Yu and Endless Summer looked at Ji Feng curiously. He did not understand what was wrong with Ji Feng's skin for him to say such frightening words. Spirit Qi professionals had seen blood in battles, and they had seen all kinds of disgusting things when killing dimensional life forms. Therefore, it was hard to be scared. As an Emperor stage expert, Ji Feng would definitely be aware of this. Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan felt a different emotion from Ji Feng's words. This emotion was very similar to inferiority. Based on this emotion, Lin Yuan knew that Ji Feng was very concerned about his body's abnormality. Then, Lin Yuan recalled that when he had helped Ji Feng up, there had been a sharp touch on Ji Feng's body. He said, "You said that your 2 suzerain/myth 2 phase can't receive any attack under the creation calamity. I even found a monarch-class creation breed expert for you. Problems are meant to be solved. If there's anything, you can say it first and see if it can be solved. If it really can't be solved, I can always think of the most suitable way to alleviate it." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Ji Feng, who had his head lowered under the black cloak, suddenly looked up. His body began to tremble, as if he had grasped onto a ray of hope in the midst of despair. Although Ji Feng had made an agreement with Lin Yuan on StarWeb, and Lin Yuan had taken on the matter and given a promise, Ji Feng had not expected Lin Yuan to do so. However, Ji Feng didn't dare to fully believe Lin Yuan's words. Or rather, he didn't dare to let himself believe in a hopeful future. This was because Ji Feng knew that he was in the midst of the most difficult struggle. If he comforted himself with hope, he would no longer have a reason to persevere. Now, Lin Yuan's words had truly allowed Ji Feng to touch the light of hope. This feeling of solidity made Ji Feng's face, which was under the black cloak, instantly brim with tears. Ji Feng couldn't solve the unknown and terrifying thing inside his body. However, with an Emperor-class expert around, Ji Feng felt that not only could his 2 phase smoothly reach Myth 3, even the abnormality in his body was very likely to be cured successfully. With that thought, Ji Feng took his hand out of the cloak. When Ji Feng took his hand out of the cloak, Lin Yuan, Endless Summer, and Wen Yu's pupils suddenly shrank. What kind of hand is this? Ji Feng's exposed hands were covered with fine nail scars that seemed to be connected to his bones. Every slight movement of his palm would cause the scars all over his hand to wander slightly. When the palm exerted force and the skin thinned, the nail scars protruded like bone spurs growing on the inside of the skin. As Ji Feng took off his cloak, Lin Yuan, Wen Yu, and Endless Summer realized that it wasn't just his hand. His forearm was also in the same situation. Ji Feng's body was completely exposed after he took off his black cloak with both hands. Ji Feng was wearing a very ordinary and worn-out black spirit chi clothing, but all of Ji Feng's exposed skin was full of nail scars. There seemed to be more nail scars on his neck than on his body, and there was a thick layer of nail scars. There was a thick layer of nail scars on his neck that was like a dividing line. Uncharacteristically, Ji Feng's face above his neck didn't have any nail scars. Ji Feng looked young, and his voice wasn't as loud as it sounded. Even though he looked mature, he was at most in his 30s or 40s. Ji Feng had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a high nose bridge. He was a classic handsome uncle. His looks would definitely surpass most of his peers. However, the nail scars on his body made Ji Feng look abnormally strange and sinister. He was like a living dead with a strange parasite in his body. End of this chapter. Chapter 1063. Before Ji Feng could speak, Endless Summer had already stood up with a gloomy expression. Endless Summer frowned as she sensed Ji Feng's aura. Why is there an aura of plants in your body? The aura of this plant is very strange. I can only sense it when I operate the law world. Moreover, the aura of this plant is constantly eroding your body, as if it wants to control your thoughts. When Endless Summer first saw Ji Feng in the royal capital, she did not feel anything strange about him. If it wasn't for the fact that Ji Feng's cloak was too terrifying, causing Endless Summer to subconsciously circulate the Enlightenment world's power to examine Ji Feng's body. Endless Summer would never discover anything strange about Ji Feng. This meant that the plant aura hidden in Ji Feng's body was of a higher level than his. He could only sense this aura when he used the power of the rule world to investigate carefully. This discovery made Endless Summer's heart skip a beat. Such a powerful aura was hidden within the body of an emperor-level powerhouse, persecuting an emperor-level powerhouse, and causing him to fall to such a state. What exactly did he want? Moreover, this kind of thing could only be detected by an emperor-stage powerhouse. Without an emperor-stage powerhouse, this kind of thing could be perfectly hidden. No matter how he thought about it, this was an extremely dangerous and terrifying matter. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan and Wen Yu immediately thought of Endless Summer's worries. Lin Yuan and Wen Yu exchanged glances, and through her eyes he could see the worry in her heart. His encounter with Ji Feng could be said to be equivalent to running into an incredible secret. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Ji Feng looked at the scars on his hands. You're right. Although I don't know what's inside my body, I know that it's alive. The power that we spirit chi professionals control is spirit chi. When this strange thing entered my body, I used the spirit chi of an S-rank spirit chi professional to resist it. But in the end, I found that this strange thing didn't react to spirit chi at all. This thing completely ignored the spiritual power in my body as an S-rank spirit chi professional and took root in my body. Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan immediately pondered. For any object to become stronger, it would need to be driven by source power. It was just like how phase couldn't do without spiritual power, dimensional life forms couldn't do without source-type power, and apostles couldn't do without the power of faith. Absorbing origin energy was the process of using origin energy to continuously improve oneself. Using the power of the origin to stimulate and enhance the bloodline that one was born with, allowing the bloodline to be strengthened by the power of the origin and evolve in a better direction. In other words, the creature in Ji Feng's body that could not sense spiritual power was definitely compatible with another type of power. Just as Lin Yuan was about to suggest that he wanted to check on the strange life form in Ji Feng's body, Ji Feng suddenly fell on the sofa in the breeding room and his body convulsed. Lin Yuan saw the nail scars on Ji Feng's body moving at a visible speed. Every inch of the nail scars brought Ji Feng immense pain. This made Ji Feng, a big and tall man, want to curl up his body. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan immediately took a step forward and grabbed Ji Feng's wrist while circulating the spiritual power in his body. He tried to infuse his spiritual energy into Ji Feng's body. When his spiritual power entered Ji Feng's body and touched the strange plant life form inside, Lin Yuan realized that his spiritual power had entered Ji Feng's body. This strange plant life didn't have the slightest reaction to the spiritual power he injected into it. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan hurriedly called out to Princess, who was in the depths of his soul. Princess, try injecting source energy into Jifeng's body and see if it has any effect on the things inside Jifeng's body. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, the princess activated the source-type power in her dress. He tried to inject a trace of source energy into Jifeng's body. In the end, this trace of weak source power did not produce any obvious changes when it was injected into Jifeng's body. However, compared to the pure spiritual power that Lin Yuan poured in, the strange plant life form in Jifeng's body had a stronger reaction to this trace of weak source-type power. Could the strange plant life form in Jifeng's body be more compatible with source-type power? Lin Yuan asked the princess to inject more source power into Jifeng's body. The princess immediately injected a unit of source power into Jifeng's body. As a result, the strange plant life in Jifeng's body suddenly moved. As though it had been activated by something, it quickly moved toward the direction where the princess was injecting source power into Jifeng's body. Lin Yuan saw that Jifeng's right arm, which had been injected with a unit of source power, was quickly covered with a layer of nail scars that were 3 times denser than the rest of his body. This unit of source power was also rapidly being absorbed by the strange plant life. Lin Yuan came to a conclusion. The strange plant life in Jifeng's body did not belong to the main world and was likely from a certain dimensional world. Only this speculation could explain why the strange plant life in Jifeng's body didn't respond to spirit qi but could devour source power. At this thought, Lin Yuan recalled the power of faith contained in the apostle totem in the dimensional world. Lin Yuan slightly opened the shrine in his soul and guided a few light spots of faith to carefully inject into Jifeng's body. Lin Yuan found that this strange plant life was rather afraid of the power of faith. The nail scars on Jifeng's arm, which Lin Yuan had injected with the power of faith, had been cleanly removed. Just as Lin Yuan was about to inject more power of faith into Jifeng's body, he found that Jifeng's life force was becoming weaker and weaker. Lin Yuan hurriedly stopped injecting the power of faith into Jifeng's body. He had almost forgotten that any movement of the strange plant life in Jifeng's body would cause extreme pain to Jifeng. After Lin Yuan stopped, he did not dare to rashly help Jifeng recover his life force. He was not sure if the life force that landed on Jifeng would be absorbed by this strange plant life. Plant life had always been extremely compatible with life force. If that was the case, it would have the opposite effect. Lin Yuan decided to wait for Jifeng to recover and have a good talk with him. After a full 15 minutes, the constantly moving nail scars on Jifeng's body stopped. Jifeng also returned to normal once again. Jifeng, who had just recovered from the pain, felt as though he had heard the sound of nature, because Lin Yuan was speaking to him. I might be able to solve your situation. There was still one more chapter at 12. End of this chapter. Chapter 1064. Lin Yuan's words could be said to have saved Jifeng. Just as Jifeng was so excited that he did not know what to say, he heard Lin Yuan continue. To solve your problem, I need to improve your physique and forcibly maintain your soul's consciousness for a period of time. This is the only way you can expel the plant life from your body without dying. To treat you, I need to spend a huge amount of resources and a very important power. Therefore, before saving you, I need to obtain your loyalty and know your secret. Lin Yuan's words were powerful and abnormally serious. After speaking, Lin Yuan took out a bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the diamond fey storage box. This bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar was brewed from the diamond silver stamen gold luster cassia petals. A small bottle could wash away all the impurities on a person's body. The silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar was the only way for Jifeng's body to reach its best state. At the same time, Lin Yuan also needed to burn a large amount of cold snow pine and use its smell and medicinal properties to nourish Jifeng's soul. This would prevent Jifeng's soul from collapsing due to the intense pain. Endless Summer also needed to use the world enlightenment power to awaken Jifeng's spirit and soul. These 3 points were indispensable, and it could be said that each of them represented a huge amount of wealth. It was something that others could not even beg for. Moreover, after these 3 points, Lin Yuan still needed to consume a huge amount of power of faith. It was not that Lin Yuan was unwilling to do good deeds and save people in danger. On the contrary, he usually did many things to save people in trouble. It was just that those help were often done in passing. Lin Yuan was not a philanthropist. If he could not obtain Ji Feng's loyalty and secret, his efforts would be in vain. In that case, Lin Yuan's efforts would be wasted, and there would be no return. Lin Yuan originally wanted Ji Feng to think for a moment before giving him an answer. However, after hearing Lin Yuan's words, Ji Feng summoned the law rune he had comprehended without thinking. He used the law rune to swear to Lin Yuan and become his servant. Ji Feng was very clear about his situation. He was poor and could not offer anything other than loyalty. Ji Feng had been very attached to freedom and was only willing to be loyal to Lin Yuan for 3 years because he did not expect Lin Yuan to be able to treat his body. If Lin Yuan could heal his body, it would be fine even if he were to be Lin Yuan's servant forever. After a short contact and understanding with Lin Yuan, Ji Feng felt that Lin Yuan would not stop him if he really wanted to do that thing. He might even be able to help him. What Ji Feng wanted to talk about was the revenge he had to take, as well as the reason why he had become like this. After swearing an oath with the law rune, Ji Feng naturally addressed Lin Yuan as Young Master. Young Master, I wonder if you've heard of the Whale Ocean Trading, a top faction? Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan frowned. When he had just arrived at the Creation Master Association, when you had mentioned the Whale Ocean Trading and the 10,000 Origin Hall to him while he was on the Divine Travel Black Swallow's back. Since it involved one of the Radiance Federation's top 3 factions, it seemed like this matter was definitely not a small matter. Could it be that the strange plant life in Ji Feng's body was related to the Whale Ocean Trade? Lin Yuan did not express his opinion and planned to wait for Ji Feng's next words. Of course I've heard of the Whale Ocean Trade. Continue. Ji Feng continued to speak with a pained expression. Young Master, do you know why the Whale Ocean Trade became one of the top 3 factions? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan shook his head. Lin Yuan had a lot of things to do every day. Although he had some understanding of the top factions, most of what he knew was the current situation. Naturally, he would not spend any effort to understand the Whale Ocean Trade's history. Lin Yuan turned to look at Wen Yu. Upon seeing Lin Yuan's questioning gaze, Wen Yu immediately said, 80 years ago, the top 3 factions in the middle stream chose to merge. The top 3 factions in the middle stream were the 10,000 Flags Trading, the Ocean Sky Nurturing, and the Origin Item Chamber of Commerce. The top 3 factions merged to form the Whale Ocean Trade. Among them, the 10,000 Flags Trading controlled the trade routes and had experts but not enough island whales. The Ocean Sky Nurturing was a faction with Creation Masters as its function. After forming the Whale Ocean Trade, the Ocean Sky Nurturing began to devote all of its Creation Master resources to nurture island whales for the Whale Ocean Trade. The Ocean and Sky Nurseries is a faction with Creation Masters as its main function. After forming the Whale Ocean Trade, the Ocean and Sky Nurseries started to pour in all of its Creation Master resources to nurture island whales for the Whale Ocean Trade. I heard that the Whale Ocean Trade's second function, the 10,000 Origin Hall, was established by the original members of the Origin Item Chamber of Commerce. I heard that the Whale Ocean Trade's second function, the 10,000 Origin Hall, was established by the original members of the Origin Item Chamber of Commerce 10 years ago. After the 3 top factions merged to form the Whale Ocean Trade 80 years ago, the 10,000 Origin Hall has always been active in front of the stage. According to the records, 10 years ago, the Sea Sky Nurturing's members would still occasionally go out. In the past decade, the Sea Sky Nurturing's members seemed to have disappeared. When she spoke up to hear, she didn't continue speaking. Among the top 3 factions, the Whale Ocean Trade, which was backed by the Chef Supreme, might be the most low-key, but it had a faint tendency to suppress the Brahma insect's cage and the Rhine life form. Moreover, the original members of the 10,000 Flags Trading, who were active in front of the stage, were humble and low-key. They only cared about accumulating wealth. Apart from the establishment of the second function, the 10,000 Origin Hall, which made the Whale Ocean Trade, which was originally formed by the 3 top factions, there was no more news. Upon hearing Wen Yu's words, Lin Yuan nodded. He finally knew the history of the Whale Ocean Trade. The Whale Ocean Trade, which was one of the Radiance Federation's top 3 factions, was formed by the merger of 3 top-notch factions that were ranked in the middle 80 years ago. The hatred and grief on Ji Feng's face intensified as he listened to Wen Yu's introduction of the history of the Whale Ocean Trading Company. Ji Feng said after a moment of silence, "The people nurtured by Haitian in the Whale Ocean Trade are all dead. I'm the only exception." Ji Feng's words were like a clap of thunder that exploded in the ears of Lin Yuan, Wen Yu, and Endless Summer. Wen Yu suddenly frowned when she heard Ji Feng's words. This was because this matter was not recorded in the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion. It had to be known that the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion never actively gathered information. God knew how much manpower the Radiant Moon Palace had to expend to gather such perfect information. Of course, the Radiant Moon Palace also had hidden moon experts who specialized in gathering intelligence. In fact, the Radiance Federation's major faction's intelligence would be reported to the Radiance Moon Palace every year. This meant that the Whale Ocean Trading Company hadn't reported any internal struggles 10 years ago. Wen Yu suddenly thought of something and raised her eyes to ask Ji Feng, "Your surname is Ji. I remember that the Haitian nurture's direct descendant's surname is also Ji." Hearing this, Ji Feng nodded gloomily. "That's right. If the Haitian nurtures were still around, I should be the Whale Ocean Trading Company's Haitian nurture's young master now." End of this chapter. Chapter 1065. It could be said that Ji Feng had divulged all his secrets and was truly introducing himself to Lin Yuan. At the same time, he also told Lin Yuan who his enemy was. Lin Yuan didn't expect Ji Feng to actually have such a background or such a huge mess. Upon seeing Lin Yuan frown, Ji Feng said calmly, "Young master, this matter is between me and Myriad Flags Trade." "Young master, this is between me and 10,000 Flags Trade. It has nothing to do with young master. Even if I become young master's servant, I will not bring any trouble to young master because of my matters. I only hope that after I am loyal to young master for 3 years, young master will allow me to seek revenge on Myriad Flags Trade." Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Wen Yu sighed. Ji Feng said it calmly. However, based on Wen Yu's understanding of Lin Yuan, even if he did not care now, he would not watch Ji Feng throw away his life 3 years later. As one of the Radiance Federation's top 3 factions, Whale Ocean Trade had many Emperor-class experts. Even if Ji Feng became an Emperor-class expert, seeking revenge on Whale Ocean Trade's 10,000 Flags Trade members would be like striking a rock with an egg. Wen Yu felt that something was wrong. If it was a normal faction struggle, Myriad Flags Trade's people would not need to cover up the news of killing the Ocean Sky Nurturing members when reporting to the Hidden Moon Pavilion. After all, even if the Moon Empress knew about such internal strife, she would not care. However, Myriad Flags Trade had chosen to cover it up. There must be something fishy about it. It was just that Wen Yu couldn't figure out what the trick was at the moment. After hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and decided to accept Ji Feng. However, Lin Yuan did not continue the topic of revenge. Instead, he changed the topic and asked, "How did you escape from the hands of Myriad Flags Trade as the Ocean Sky Nurturing's young master? I don't think Myriad Flags Trade deliberately let you go and nurture a tiger." Lin Yuan's question was very sharp, but it was something he had to know. Upon hearing that, Ji Feng recalled the scene 10 years ago. His eyes turned red, and his hoarse voice sounded like he was weeping blood. Originally, everything was calm and peaceful. However, on a day when it wasn't supposed to be a gathering, the 10,000 Flags lineage unexpectedly invited us to a gathering. At that time, the Wanqi branch was very enthusiastic and repeatedly expressed that they hoped that all of us from the Sea Sky branch would participate. In the end, halfway through the banquet, my grandfather, who is also the only peak Emperor stage powerhouse of the Ocean Sky lineage, discovered that the spiritual power in his body had been sealed. His mental power had also been paralyzed, and he was unable to summon any spiritual items. Right at that moment, the Myriad Flags bloodline revealed their true intentions and imprisoned all of us from the Ocean Sky bloodline. Then, the people of Wanqi branch planted a seed with the smell of rotting corpses into the bodies of the people of Hai Tian branch. I happened to be the last one. I should have died a long time ago like the rest of the sea-sky bloodline. But due to the special reasons of the two contracted phase, I managed to survive 10 years of pain until now. When he heard this, he did not go to comfort Ji Feng. After all, there was no way to comfort him with words. Lin Yuan patted Ji Feng's shoulder and handed him a small tube of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. This is a jar of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Drink it. After drinking it, the impurities in your body will be discharged, and your genetic model will be optimized. Your body will enter the best state. Leave everything after that to me. When Ji Feng saw Lin Yuan holding a small jar of amber-colored nectar, he did not even think about the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. However, as the young family head of the Whale Ocean Trading's Ocean Sky branch, Ji Feng naturally knew what the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar meant. The Radiant Moon Palace's silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar rarely flowed to other factions. Even if the Whale Ocean Trading wanted to request silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the Moon Empress, they could only request a dozen drops a year. It could be said that the amount of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar in front of him was something that the Whale Ocean Trading could only request for 20 years from the Moon Empress under normal circumstances. Upon seeing Lin Yuan take out such a precious item like the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Ji Feng was touched. He also vaguely guessed the relationship between Lin Yuan and the Radiant Moon Palace. Ji Feng had been parasitized by that strange plant life form for 10 years, and during this period, Ji Feng had not come into contact with any news. Therefore, Ji Feng could not guess Lin Yuan's identity no matter how hard he tried. Ji Feng simply did not know that the Moon Empress had accepted a disciple. Ji Feng extended his trembling hand and took the bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar that carried a bright future from Lin Yuan. It was as though he wanted to drink the pain of his past. Ji Feng's body would discharge a large amount of impurities after drinking the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Lin Yuan looked at Wen Yu and Endless Summer and said, "Why don't the two of you wait in the lounge inside the breeding room? Otherwise, the two of you might not be able to withstand the smell of impurities." As someone who had drunk the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Lin Yuan was very clear about the smell of impurities in his body. The smell was like crushed fish intestines that had been fermented in a bag for 5 years, and then pig liver and soybeans that had also been fermented for 5 years were added in. After smelling it once, one would not dare to think about smelling it a second time. Endless Summer replied, "I still have to use the power to enlighten Ji Feng's world to continue awakening Ji Feng's spirit and soul. I'll accompany you outside." Lin Yuan shook his head in response. Endless Summer, circulate the power of the enlightening world at the entrance of the lounge. Use the power of the enlightening world to awaken Ji Feng's spirit and soul. There was no bathroom in the lounge of the breeding room. He could not let Ji Feng bathe in the bathroom while expelling the strange plant life form in his body. Therefore, enduring the smell of the impurities discharged from Ji Feng's body was his best choice. Although Lin Yuan wasn't a clean freak, he had always been very fond of cleanliness. Even when his body was at its weakest, the Xia region's phase store would still be cleaned once a day. However, it was a critical time to save people, so he could only grit his teeth and treat it with extreme care. As time ticked by, Lin Yuan saw that Ji Feng's body was no longer emitting foul-smelling black impurities. He took out the cold snow rosin that he had placed in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. He added the fire-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl powder that the scorching elemental shellfish had just produced into the cold snow rosin. The pure fire-type energy instantly ignited the cold snow rosin. After smelling the scent of the cold snow rosin, Lin Yuan felt his soul becoming lighter and very comfortable. Lin Yuan spoke softly to Endless Summer, who was standing at the entrance of the lounge. "Endless Summer, now is the time." End of this chapter. Chapter 1066. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, Endless Summer immediately circulated the world of enlightenment's power. The world of enlightenment's pinkish-purple power enveloped Ji Feng, making him feel unprecedentedly lively. Once everything was ready, Lin Yuan placed his hand on Ji Feng's heart. Then he completely opened the shrine in his soul. Under Lin Yuan's guidance, the massive power of faith poured into Ji Feng's body like a tide. Lin Yuan planned to use the power of faith to fully suppress the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body. He had just heard that the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body was developed from a strange seed with the smell of rotting corpses. Before Ji Feng had used his body as a container to nurture this seed, it had absorbed the energy of countless people. This meant that the seed had tremendous destructive power to the human body. Lin Yuan wanted to end the battle as quickly as possible to protect Ji Feng's body. Lin Yuan's method was very effective. Through the massive power of faith, Lin Yuan quickly forced the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body into his left arm. Once the strange plant life form had completely entered Ji Feng's left arm, the dense nail scars connected together. This made Ji Feng's left arm look like an iron arm made of nails. Upon seeing that the power of faith could no longer force this strange plant life form back, Lin Yuan shook his sleeves. This strange plant life form had no intention of leaving Ji Feng's body, so Lin Yuan shook his sleeves. The amber button-shaped source sand landed on the ground and formed a quicksand vortex with a diameter of 2 meters. According to Lin Yuan's instructions, a chain sword made of ferromanganese separated from the quicksand vortex. The chain sword made of ferromanganese ruthlessly slashed at Ji Feng's left arm. Ji Feng's left arm, which was full of nail scars, fell, and Lin Yuan summoned the jasmine lily. He allowed the jasmine lily to freely heal and use its exclusive skill, severed power, to regrow Ji Feng's severed arm. During Lin Yuan's treatment process, Ji Feng felt as though he was enduring the world's harshest torture. The triple pain in his soul, body, and mind was so intense that he had to punch in every half an hour. Ji Feng had thought of committing suicide more than 1,000 times. When the chain sword slashed at his left arm, Ji Feng only felt incomparably liberated. This was because that strange plant life form was finally going to leave his body. Even if he lost his left arm because of this, Ji Feng did not feel the slightest bit reluctant. However, Ji Feng didn't expect that the fey contracted by this youth wearing the majestic Sky City's pattern mask could actually regrow his severed arm. Compared to the joy of regenerating an arm, Ji Feng was even more surprised. As the young family head of the Whale Ocean Trading Sea Sky lineage 10 years ago, Ji Feng could not remember when there was a healing-type fey that could regrow a severed arm. Could it be that the times had changed in the 10 years that he had lived? Ji Feng, who had regained his new life, wanted to thank Lin Yuan, but before he could speak, something unexpected happened. The scar on Ji Feng's left arm that had been chopped off converged at one spot, turning into a dark green seed with the smell of rotting corpses. The black-green seed that had just formed with the smell of rotting corpses shot toward Lin Yuan. Just as Lin Yuan's nose caught a trace of the smell of rotting corpses, he felt a pain on his back. Then, Lin Yuan's spirit, soul, and body entered a triple agony. Previously, when Lin Yuan had used the diamond silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to cleanse his body of impurities, he had endured physical pain. Later, when Lin Yuan had used the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to cleanse his soul of impurities, he had endured intense pain in his soul. These two kinds of pain that had made Lin Yuan wish he was dead was child's play compared to the pain he was experiencing now. Even when Lin Yuan's hands had been sliced by the spatial energy in the evolving water world dimensional rift, only white bones were left. His soul was about to burst from the two sacred source life forms, but the pain was not even 1/3 of the pain he was experiencing now. It could be said that Lin Yuan could finally empathize with Ji Feng. When Lin Yuan wore the Sky City's identity mask, Endless Summer, and when you would habitually call him City Lord and Young Master. Now that something had happened, when you and Endless Summer could not help but call out Lin Yuan's name out of worry. When Endless Summer and when you arrived in front of Lin Yuan, they immediately covered their mouths. This was because Lin Yuan's body was covered with the same nail scars as Ji Feng's. While worrying about Lin Yuan, Endless Summer's gaze toward Ji Feng was already tainted with brutal killing intent. After all, Endless Summer was a fey, and Fei's feelings were always simple and sincere. The more powerful a Fei was, the more it cherished its feelings. Endless Summer felt that if it had not been for Ji Feng, Lin Yuan would not have encountered this crisis. At the same time, Endless Summer blamed herself. It would have been better if she had insisted on not going to the lounge. If she had been close to Lin Yuan, she would have been able to respond immediately when such a situation occurred. Even if she had been in front of Lin Yuan, it would have been fine. Lin Yuan had used the life-form Silent Fire to save her life and had given up the opportunity to receive glory. When she was suffering from the calamity of creation, he had brought Mystic Moon to save her and allowed her to obtain new resources and transform her bloodline. Finally, after she had become a creation breed, he had given her a precious sacred source life form. It had also helped her solve the problem of planting the Arakoa orchid sprout. Plant Feis were not like animal Feis, who did not know who their parents were from a young age. Most plant Feis were alone from the moment they were born, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were born from nature. It could be said that Endless Summer's most sincere feelings, apart from her sisterhood with the Mother of Bloodbath, were those with Lin Yuan. Seeing Lin Yuan injured, Endless Summer felt worse than being injured 100 times herself. However, as a creation seed, Endless Summer was helpless and could not do anything about Lin Yuan's current situation. The only thing Endless Summer could do was to use the Enlightenment Law world to keep Lin Yuan's mind and spirit in a state of awakening. In fact, Lin Yuan was not as miserable as Endless Summer, and when you looked, how could Lin Yuan, who possessed the power of faith, wait helplessly for death? Lin Yuan had already used the power of faith in the shrine in his soul to counterattack. At that moment, Lin Yuan's body once again ignited with the amber-colored gauze robe, and he used the power of faith to wash his body indiscriminately. He also suppressed and drove away the strange plant life form that had invaded his body. Just as Lin Yuan forced the strange plant life form that had invaded his body into his left leg and was about to use the chain sword that was separated from the origin sand to cut off his left leg. Before Lin Yuan could heave a sigh of relief, another change occurred. End of this chapter. Chapter 1067. Lin Yuan felt as if a force had crossed thousands of miles and poured into the strange plant lifeform's body, which was being pushed back by his power of faith. This energy was like a command, but it also seemed to have activated the seed's originally chaotic life. The power that the seed suddenly emitted made Lin Yuan feel an unprecedented pressure. Lin Yuan felt a vague sense of familiarity from the new pressure emitted by the strange plant life form on his left leg. Lin Yuan suddenly recalled that this pressure was the same as the one emitted by Mystic Moon's main body. However, the pressure emitted by this strange plant life form was more illusory than the pressure emitted by Mystic Moon's main body. After this pressure appeared, the strange plant life form started to counterattack against the power of faith. Spikes covered Lin Yuan's body again, and some even went past his neck. They started to climb toward Lin Yuan's head. At that moment, the power of faith, which had always been successful against the strange plant life form, also lost its effect on it. Lin Yuan felt the intense pain constantly eroding him. Apart from the intense pain, there seemed to be a faintly discernible will that wanted to occupy and control his soul. Under the intense pain, Lin Yuan's will to resist became weaker and weaker. That faintly discernible will also started to counterattack against Lin Yuan's soul. It acted as though it wanted to take Lin Yuan's soul for itself unreasonably. Ji Feng, who had just expelled the strange plant life form from his body, and his arm had just grown halfway with the jasmine lily's vitality energy, suddenly urged his spiritual energy. Immediately after, two plant Feis that had obviously gone through mimicry appeared beside Ji Feng. At that moment, Endless Summer's violent emotions, which had been caused by worrying about Lin Yuan, seemed to have found a breakthrough. Endless Summer's endless killing intent and pressure pounced on Ji Feng and the two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 plant Feis that he had summoned. Endless Summer's monarch-class pressure made Ji Feng, who was an emperor-class expert, turn pale, and he knelt on one knee. The two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 plant Feis beside Ji Feng were also completely suppressed by Endless Summer's pressure and could not move at all. Endless Summer was not a person who liked to vent its anger on others. Now that Lin Yuan was helpless in the face of danger, Endless Summer blamed herself more. Lin Yuan clearly did not have the slightest ability to resist in his current state. Ji Feng had only met Endless Summer today. Endless Summer couldn't guarantee that Ji Feng didn't have any other intentions towards Lin Yuan. Although a spirit chi professional's oath with willpower and law rune was trustworthy, Lin Yuan clearly could not control Ji Feng's oath with law rune in his current state. It wasn't like there had never been cases of death warriors assassinating people in the origin world by swearing on willpower and law runes. Life was the most important thing. For those who wished to continue living in this world, the oath made by the will and the rules had absolute binding power. However, people who sought death wholeheartedly already had no soul, and nothing in the world mattered to them. There were naturally no taboos when it came to doing things. Seeing Endless Summer's vigilant gaze, Ji Feng hurriedly waved his hand. I relied on my two-phase to survive for 10 years and didn't die at the hands of this strange plant life form like the other clansmen. My two-phase can protect your soul and prevent your thoughts from being controlled by the will hidden in that strange plant life form's body. Upon hearing that, Endless Summer carefully examined Ji Feng's two-phase. After sensing the special law power that the two-phase had comprehended, Endless Summer believed half of Ji Feng's words. Endless Summer withdrew the pressure on Ji Feng and the two-phase and flashed to stand in front of Lin Yuan. It looked at Ji Feng as though saying, "Since you said that your two-phase can protect you, then use your means to protect Lin Yuan now." Ji Feng looked at his two-phase and recalled the price he had paid in order to survive. His face revealed a bitter expression. However, Ji Feng's gaze immediately became resolute. As the person who had lit the flame of hope for him and given him a new life, Ji Feng was willing to pay a greater price than what he had paid in order to survive. Ji Feng took a deep breath and stood up. He looked at one of the orchid-like phase with sword-like leaves and black and white flowers. Karma Sword Orchid, use Orchid's breath, then use Karma Thread Extraction and Karma Pause. Following Ji Feng's command, the roots of the orchid-like phase suddenly intertwined with each other. Then, a massive amount of energy poured into the Karma Sword Orchid's body. At that moment, the Karma Sword Orchid's black and white flowers shot a ray of light at Lin Yuan. Immediately after, this ray of light drew out a thread with the smell of rotting corpses from Lin Yuan's body. He looked at the thread and sensed its aura and energy. He immediately discovered that this thread was related to the seed that had just invaded Lin Yuan's body with the smell of rotting corpses. After pulling out the karma thread between this strange plant life form and Lin Yuan, the Karma Sword Orchid's flowers immediately shot out several black and white rays of light and landed on the thread. It caused the substance flowing on the thread to stagnate. Once the substance flowing on the thread stagnated, the pressure on Lin Yuan's spirit and soul was relieved. Lin Yuan, who had regained control over his spirit and soul, did not have the time to see how Ji Feng's Fei had helped him, let alone check on Ji Feng's Fei's exclusive skill. Lin Yuan hurriedly mobilized the power of faith again to cleanse the strange plant life form that had invaded his body. However, after this cleansing, Lin Yuan's heart was in his throat. This was because the strange plant life form's body seemed to have opened a restriction and emitted that aura, and the power of faith did not have much effect on it. In other words, the method that had been effective on Ji Feng had lost its effect on Lin Yuan. However, Lin Yuan still did not give up any hope and used the power of faith to resist tenaciously. He firmly defended his final position, which was the spirit and soul hidden in his brain. Ji Feng, who had been observing Lin Yuan's situation, continued to command the petite lotus fei that had not even opened its other bud. Order the water lily to use lotus powder soul cleansing. Upon hearing Ji Feng's command, the water lily's bud that had yet to open in time immediately opened. The golden green pollen scattered under Lin Yuan's feet and formed a lotus domain. After this lotus domain was formed, it immediately slowly nourished Lin Yuan's soul. After doing all this, Ji Feng still did not stop. End of this chapter. Chapter 1068. The spiritual power in Ji Feng's body circulated at full speed, and he immediately commanded the Karma Sword Orchid. He used the Karma Sword Orchid's ability, Reverse Karma, to reverse the karma between him and the strange plant life form in his body. However, after using Reverse Karma, Ji Feng's body felt as though it had been struck by lightning. The Karma Sword Orchid also paused on the ground, clearly suffering severe injuries. What? Ji Feng spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Ji Feng looked at Lin Yuan in shock. When he had been parasitized by the strange plant life form, he had also used the Karma Sword Orchid's ability, Reverse Karma, on himself. At that time, he had paid a huge price, but the price was far less than this. Why is the karma power produced by that strange plant life form in my body so powerful? Could it be that the strange plant life form has suddenly become stronger? Without much hesitation, Ji Feng decisively continued to activate the Karma Sword Orchid's other ability, Great Fruit Severance. After Ji Feng used his skill, Great Fruit Severance, dozens of thick threads emerged from his body. For nearly 10 years, Ji Feng, who had been tossing and turning in pain, had not been willing to cut off these dozens of karma threads. When a human came into contact with any life form, there would be corresponding karma between them. The closer the relationship between the two, the stronger the karma power. The dozens of thick karma threads that emerged from Ji Feng's body were the last fetters between him and his deceased family. Lin Yuan had given him a way forward and also given him a chance to take revenge for his family. In Ji Feng's heart, taking revenge for his deceased family was the greatest reward for these dozens of karma threads. Ji Feng pulled out a sword-like orchid leaf from the Karma Sword Orchid and swung it with reluctance and pain to cut off the dozens of karma threads that he had kept for 10 years. The sword fell and the threads were all cut. A tear flowed out of Ji Feng's left eye and dripped on the ground. It was as though he was using this tear to bid farewell to his deceased family. The severed karmic threads released a large amount of karmic power. The karmic power that was formed due to the severed fetters all returned to Ji Feng's body. Ji Feng used Reverse Karma for the second time, which had severely injured him. This time, Ji Feng realized that his Reverse Karma still did not succeed, and his body suffered more severe injuries. Ji Feng, who had failed twice in a row, murmured in disbelief. Impossible! Why didn't I succeed in reversing the cause and effect twice? When Ji Feng sensed his body's condition, he knew that if the jasmine lily had not listened to Lin Yuan's instructions and kept pouring vitality into his body, he would have died. He was afraid that he would have died from the second karmic backlash. However, reversing karma was not Ji Feng's last resort to restrain this strange plant life form. Ji Feng continued to use the Prophecy Water Lily's Prophecy Promise skill. When Ji Feng used his Water Lily Prediction skill, a pure and holy aura emerged from his body. Suddenly, it was as if Ji Feng had fused with heaven and earth, becoming a part of heaven and earth, and could communicate with heaven and earth. Ji Feng said sternly, "I predict that Lin Yuan will use his power to suppress that strange plant life form." After Ji Feng completed this prophecy, he immediately felt that his death was imminent. Prophecy Water Lily's Prophecy Covenant skill allowed him to predict an event. If the prediction was successful, it would not affect him in any way. If the prophecy failed, he would suffer the backlash of the heavenly secret. When he sensed that death was about to befall him, Ji Feng knew that Lin Yuan could not use his power to suppress that strange plant life form. Ji Feng hurriedly used the Prophecy Water Lily's exclusive skill, Strange Prophecy. He had used his exclusive skill, Deceitful Prophecy, to escape his impending death. However, Ji Feng could only use Strange Prophecy once in a long time. Ji Feng still had one last method, but it was very likely that he would lose his life. The price of his life made Ji Feng hesitate. Although Lin Yuan had given him a new life, he had yet to take revenge. However, Ji Feng dispelled the hesitation in his heart in the end. If he did not make a move now and try his best, Ji Feng would never forgive himself if Lin Yuan died. Ji Feng immediately activated Prophecy Water Lily's testimony and was prepared to use his soul as the price to reverse the prophecy. After Ji Feng activated testimony, he looked at Lin Yuan with a complicated expression and said loudly, "I predict that Lin Yuan will not die. I predict that Lin Yuan will not die." After the prophecy, Ji Feng, who was waiting for death to descend and prepared to use his soul to strive to change the heavenly secret, waited for a long time but did not see anything. This made Ji Feng enter a dumbfounded state. Then Ji Feng was ecstatic. For a situation where he did not need to pay the price, it meant that his prophecy had come true. Lin Yuan would not die. As time passed, Lin Yuan constantly used the power of faith to fight the strange plant life form in his body. He discovered that the strange plant life form's body had activated a power that had been hidden before. Even with Ji Feng and Endless Summer's help, Lin Yuan was still at an absolute disadvantage. Just as Lin Yuan's body, spirit, and soul were about to reach their limits, he was about to collapse from the intense pain, and his consciousness was about to be seized. Morbius' voice echoed in Lin Yuan's mind. "Partner, I will sleep for a long time this time. I look forward to meeting you again." After Lin Yuan, who was in intense pain, faintly heard Morbius' voice, the reddish-gold copper ring on his hand suddenly emitted a reddish-gold light. This reddish-gold light was like an emperor that ruled over everything. Even the pressure that was very similar to Mystic Moon's was immediately suppressed when it touched this reddish-gold light. In the reddish-gold light, the nail scars on Lin Yuan's body immediately melted like snow under the blazing sun. In the end, all the nail scars formed a fingernail-sized seed on Lin Yuan's neck. The seed was pulled to Lin Yuan's wrist by the Mobius band, which was emitting a reddish-gold radiance, and it broke open his wrist. The seed, which originally had the smell of rotting corpses, now seemed to have a person's intent and will. It was as though someone was using this seed to sense the world. However, all of this was quickly washed away by the reddish-gold light emitted by the Morbius band. If one ignored the smell of rotting corpses emitted by this seed, it was really no different from an ordinary plant seed and no longer had any offensive power. After the seed landed on Lin Yuan's hand, the Morbius band lost its light. Morbius seemed to have fallen asleep and no longer replied, allowing Lin Yuan to communicate with its mind. Chapter 1069. Lin Yuan knew that the Mobius band had saved him once again. It was just like when the two sacred source life forms had entered his body in the evolving water world dimensional rift. It was just that Morbius had fallen into a deep slumber both times he had saved himself. The last time, Morbius had become a fantasy breed before waking up from its slumber. This time, he was afraid that only by raising Morbius' rank would he be able to awaken it quickly. Originally, Lin Yuan had not spent any effort on Morbius' Silver phase that required Spirit Lock. However, he needed to confirm Morbius' Silver Spirit Lock phase as soon as possible. After he forced the strange plant life form out of his body and recovered, Endless Summer and Wen Yu hurriedly surrounded him with concern. He worriedly checked on Lin Yuan's condition. Ji Feng, who had nearly died several times because of Lin Yuan, stood awkwardly on the spot and did not know if he should step forward. Ji Feng felt rather guilty that Lin Yuan had ended up in such a situation because of him. He, who had been fighting with that strange plant life form in his body, naturally knew what Ji Feng had done for him. Lin Yuan walked up to Ji Feng and patted his arm, which had grown out thanks to the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Severed Connection. "Ji Feng, thank you so much just now." Ji Feng hurriedly shook his head and said apologetically, "Young master, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been infected by that strange plant." Ji Feng recalled the reddish-gold radiance on Lin Yuan's wrist. That reddish-gold light was simply too dazzling and awe-inspiring. Even Ji Feng felt a lingering fear when he recalled it. While talking to Ji Feng, Lin Yuan also looked at the two Feis that had been of great help under Ji Feng's command. Fei name: Karma Sword Orchid, Spirit Species, Sword Orchid / Iridaceae, Fei grade, Suzerain, 8 out of 10, Fei type, Light / Spiritual, Fei quality, Myth II skills: Frowny Face Orchid Leaf Light Blade, waves the orchid leaf to release a leaf blade. The leaf blade can absorb light energy to form a blade of light, and when it slashes, it will cause the target to burn and evolve. Berserk Orchid Sword Feather. Every orchid leaf that looks like a sword scatters a large number of blades in all directions. The blades collide and shatter to form even more blades. The blades absorb the light energy in the air and transform it into a rain of blades with powerful cutting and armor-piercing effects. Karma thread pulls out specific karma from the target's body, effectively reducing the target's karma. Cause and effect pause. Set an effective period of time and remove the material's cause and effect from the material. After the set effective period is over, the removed cause and effect will automatically return. Cause of reversal. Through the consumption of spiritual energy and light element energy, it reverses a karmic relationship. The stronger the target is, the weaker the effect of the karmic reversal will be. When the target breaks free from the karmic reversal, it will cause a backlash. Severed karma severs one's own karma line. Every karma line that is severed will cause the target's memories to fade. Severed karma lines can increase the effects of any karma skill. Exclusive skill frowny face orchid's breath. The root grows a breath tissue that can store energy that is accumulated daily. The accumulated energy will continuously increase as time passes. Orchid karma fruit. The karma is the orchid, and the fruit is the catkin. When activating the orchid karma fruit, the stronger the karma between the two, the weaker the fruit. During the activation of the orchid karma fruit, one needs to consume one's own karma to maintain it. Karma labyrinth. Create a labyrinth with your own karma power and hide a piece of karma in the labyrinth. Before the karma hidden in the labyrinth leaves the labyrinth, the karma's influence on the target will be greatly reduced. Fey name. Pre-order water lotus, Fey species. Mangli/macrophyllum, Fey grade. Suzerain, 10/10, Fey type. Soul, Fey quality. Myth II abilities frowny face lotus leaf protection. The light emitted by the lotus leaf can resist a certain level of soul attack from the outside world. Lotus powder soul cleansing. Scatter the pollen from the flower bud that doesn't bloom all day to form a lotus domain. The lotus domain can nourish the injured soul and recover the soul's injuries. Lotus purity. Combine the host's pre-order water lotus's soul with the target. When the target's soul is attacked, the pre-order water lotus will automatically plant lotus powder in the target's soul to nourish the target's soul. Prophecy promise. Make a prophecy of an upcoming event. If the prophecy is successful, the prophet won't be affected at all. If the prophecy fails, the prophet will suffer a backlash from heaven's secrets. Testimonial. Use one's soul power as a bargaining chip to sacrifice a portion of one's soul power to change the prophecy. The greater the deviation between the prophecy and reality, the more soul power needed to be sacrificed. When one's soul power is insufficient, the prophecy will not affect the predetermined reality. Heaven's secrets favor. Use one's vitality as the price to pray for blessings on the target. The target will be blessed by heaven's secrets and be in a state of abundant blessings. Exclusive skill frowny face slumber. Pacify the target's soul and put the target's soul in a sleeping state. When the soul in slumber is attacked by the outside world, it can reduce the damage. Strange words prophecy. After making a prophecy, when one is about to suffer a backlash from heaven's secrets, one can deem the prophecy one has said as strange words and escape the backlash from heaven's secrets. Heaven's secrets promise. Automatically predict one piece of bad luck for people related to one within a certain period of time every day. When Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to see the attributes of these two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Fays, his pupils immediately constricted. It could be said that both the Karma Gladiolus and the Pre-Order Water Lotus were supreme grade Fays that were 1 in a million. Such Fays were even at the standard of His Holiness's disciples like Shang Zongzi and Gu Lang. From this alone, it could be seen how much effort the Ocean Sky Cultivation had invested into Ji Feng's cultivation. Fays like the Karma Gladiolus that could manipulate karma and the Pre-Order Water Lotus that could prophesy and change reality through prophecy were abnormally rare. In fact, compared to the Karma Gladiolus, Lin Yuan was more concerned about the Pre-Order Water Lotus. The Pre-Order Water Lotus powder soul cleansing could heal the target's soul damage. If he accepted Ji Feng, it would be equivalent to having an endless supply of cold snow pine incense. No matter how many people in Sky City suffered soul damage, there was no need to worry. Ji Feng must have been related to the pre-order water lotus purity for 10 years since he had been able to survive under that strange plant life form. What surprised and pleased Lin Yuan the most was the exclusive skill, Heaven's Secrets Promise, that it had obtained when it became a myth breed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1070. The Prophecy Water Lily's exclusive skill, Heaven's Secret Appointment, allowed Ji Feng to predict the future of a person he came into contact with for a period of time. Although it couldn't seek fortune and avoid calamity, this kind of prediction with a warning effect could completely make people more vigilant. And by taking sufficient precautions in advance, it would affect reality. Aside from the mess behind Ji Feng, Lin Yuan was very satisfied with accepting Ji Feng as a member of Sky City. The significance of Ji Feng's existence was no longer as simple as an emperor-level expert. Compared to Ji Feng's strength, Ji Feng's strategic significance was more important. For so many years, Ji Feng had been living in poverty. He would often hide it under the black robe. More importantly, it was to avoid the pursuit of the Whale Ocean Trade's 10,000 banners. After understanding Ji Feng and taking him into Sky City, Lin Yuan no longer needed to stay in the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. Lin Yuan took out the treasured artifact made from the treasure cave Golden Toad's stomach pouch and skin and said to Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng, put away your two-phase first. Then, Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng, the three of you will stay in this prized artifact for a while. It will also be good for you to go to a place where there is no one around and help the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily break through to Myth 3. After putting Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng into the treasure cave Golden Cicada's skin and stomach pouch, Lin Yuan extended his hand. He looked at the strange seed in his hand that was no different from an ordinary seed. After checking, Lin Yuan really didn't know what this strange plant seed was used for. However, Lin Yuan knew that this strange plant seed was definitely something incredible. There might even be a big secret hidden within. All abnormalities within the seed had been erased by the golden light released by Morbius. Therefore, he could leave this seed by his side without worry. The Spirit Lock spatial zone was of great importance, so he did not place the seed in it. Instead, he carefully placed the seed in the amber button-shaped diamond Fey storage box. Lin Yuan then circulated his spiritual power and went through several nodes to teleport to the outskirts of the royal capital where Endless Summer had transcended the creation calamity. On a huge island that was hit by the waves, all kinds of bright and misty lights flashed. Peridot, blue tourmaline, emerald, purple cat's eye, pink crystal jade, sunstone, and various other precious gems were piled up on the island like grains of sand. A beam of light shone on the gemstones of various colors. The edges and corners of the gems of various colors shone wantonly, dyeing the entire island with a layer of exquisite and ever-changing luster. 7 towers of different postures stood tall on this island paved with gemstones of various colors. At this time, in front of each tower stood a man wearing a robe with the same pattern as the tower in front of them. The man who was standing in front of the pagoda, wearing a long robe and directing everyone to chant, was the leader of every pagoda in the pagoda canon. There were 32 chanters kneeling in front of the leader. The chanters kneeling on the ground devoutly sang a melodious song according to the leader's instructions. Apart from the leaders and chanters in front of the 7 towers, there was also a huge tower pit. The tower above the tower pit had disappeared, but there was still a leader and 32 chanters singing devoutly in front of the tower pit. Even without one tower, the Sky Garden, which was originally supported by a bridge from each of the 8 towers with different postures, was still stable. It was not affected by the loss of one tower at all. The Sky Garden was still filled with statues of different postures, just like before. Regardless of whether these statues were broken or not, they all became more lively under the baptism of the Golden Fountain. The will, rules, and even the world contained in the statues were continuously baptized by the Golden Fountain. Following the splashing water of the Golden Fountain, the water flowed into the clear pool under the fountain, causing sparkling and translucent splashes to appear. It made the golden pool look like a huge container that contained will, rules, and the world. At this time, there were 8 chairs beside the huge round table in the center of the sky garden. They were arranged in pairs, and they seemed to sit on equal footing. However, there were only 7 people sitting on the 8 chairs, and 6 of them had clearly just gotten into a conflict. The auras of the 6 people were opposing each other, and they did not give way to each other. Among the 7 people present, there was only one figure, whose whole body was hidden under a rose-red long robe, sitting comfortably and lazily on the chair. It was as if the 6 people arguing in front of her were just irrelevant scenery. Suddenly, a short-haired woman with hollow eyes giggled like a sickly girl and said rudely, "Second page of revival, you are too greedy. It's true that you came up with that plan, but all of us are helping you. It's not time to reap the rewards yet, and you want to touch our common spoils of war. I won't agree to this." As she spoke, the eyes of the short-haired woman with hollow eyes glowed. The glint in the short-haired woman's eyes seemed to contain all the sins in the world. Hearing the short-haired woman's words, a girl with thick glasses who looked like a girl next door stood up from the table. The girl gently curled her hands in front of her chest and chanted as if she was praying. Revival needs to be bathed in blood to be dazzling. Apart from the 8 pages of death, no one else helped me in the early stages. I was the one who set everything up myself. 3rd page of eternal sin, you are the greedy one. If you continue to watch and do nothing in the future plan, you won't even get 1/10 of what you have now. The girl who was chanting suddenly erupted with a monstrous aura. After this monstrous aura appeared, it directly collided with the aura of the 3rd page of eternal sin. At this time, sitting next to the 2nd page of revival, the figure hidden in a rose-red robe coughed lightly. The expression on the face of the 3rd page of eternal sin, who was competing with the 2nd page of revival, gradually became ferocious, and his delicate facial features also looked a little terrifying. However, in the end, the 3rd page of eternal sin didn't say anything. He just glanced at the figure covered in a rose-red robe next to the 2nd page of revival with fear. Seeing that the 3rd page of eternal sin didn't say anything more, the cold man who sat like a snake showed a neurotic smile on his face. He cracked his mouth and said, "In the sky garden, the wax figure that I made for less than a month was cleaned by the baptism spring. The new batch of wax figure materials has improved the specifications. How can I finish so many creation breed materials by myself?" Speaking of this, the cold man who sat like a snake changed the topic. "So I ask for 1/20th more of the spoils of war." As soon as the man who sat like a snake finished speaking, he was ridiculed by a middle-aged man who looked very righteous. "The 8 pages of death, you only know how to do some handicrafts. Since when do you have the right to bargain? The materials you used to make the wax figure are all my toys. The creation breed toys have all been given to you. Why are you still wasting time here?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1071. No matter what the righteous-looking uncle said, his words always seemed to be filled with sincerity and courage. At first glance, anyone would think that this seemingly righteous uncle was a good person. Furthermore, he was a heroic figure. Just his looks alone were enough to make people want to give him their all without the slightest bit of wariness. However, this seemingly righteous uncle's words were filled with disregard for life. It was as if the lives of all living creatures were just playthings in his hands. When the 8 pages of death heard the righteous-looking middle-aged man's words, even though he still had a strange expression on his face, his mouth opened wider and wider. It was as if there was a monster hiding in his mouth, and the monster would break out at any time to attack the righteous-looking uncle. Upon seeing 8-page death's gaping mouth, the golden-haired and golden-eyed 7th page war, who had been silent all this while, frowned and said in a cold and dignified voice, "Shut up, 8 pages of death. I can smell the disgusting reptile smell in your mouth." 7th page war's words made the expression on 8th page death's face become even more neurotic, and its mouth opened wider. It was as if the skin on the surface of the body was just a coat for the life in the mouth. The righteous-looking uncle laughed when he heard 7th page war's words. However, before he could finish laughing, the righteous-looking man was targeted by 7th page war. 6 pages of whip, your tower of whip is too slow. The 5 pages of truth, which had been inactive all this while, have already gone to the Agon continent. Even the Tower of Truth has been moved to the Deep Brahman Federation. The righteous-looking uncle was 6th page whip. His expression did not change when he heard 7th page war's words, but he slammed his hand on the table. What has yours truly speed got to do with you? 7th page war, you wiped out the Dark Continent's Dark Federation. Even if you let your Ash squad surround the Dark Continent and let the Cancer phase wreak havoc on the Dark Continent from 36 directions, the people of the Dark Continent still managed to escape. Do you want the entire world to know that our pagoda cannon has begun its operation? Seeing that the situation was gradually getting out of control, the girl next door 2nd page Fuxing suddenly looked aggrieved. Then, 2nd page Revival's tone changed, and the sound it made was like a mournful song. If we don't get down to business and continue quarreling, my angel of death won't be able to stop himself from coming out to sing. Hearing 2nd page of Renaissance's mournful voice, everyone got used to it and stopped arguing. They were ready to discuss the upcoming business together. Seeing that they were about to get down to business, the figure hidden in the rose-red robe sat up straight. Right at this moment, 2nd page Revival, who was originally standing up and preparing to speak, suddenly revealed a shocked expression on his face. Crimson gold. My eyes are filled with crimson gold light. 2nd page Fuxing clenched his fists. His eyes turned gray in an instant. He stared at the southeast through the garden in the sky. Sensing 2nd page Revival's abnormality, 6th page Whip asked, "What's wrong? Did you find anything from the seeds of the gardener's konjac?" When the 2nd page of Renaissance's eyes turned gray, apart from the figure in the red robe, there was no one else. Without exception, everyone's gaze was fixed on 2nd page of Revival. 3rd page Eternal Sin, who had short hair and hollow eyes, suddenly discovered that 2nd page Revival's sin value had suddenly increased by a large margin. This made 3 page Eternal Sin's face immediately show an expression of interest. At the same time, the 3 pages of Eternal Sin also thought of the 5 pages of Truth. The sin value of the 5 pages of Truth, who had gone to the Deep Brahman continent that day, was about to disappear. Until now, the 3rd page of Eternal Sin had not figured out why the sin value on the 5th page of Truth would disappear. Although the 3rd page Eternal Sin had some guesses, whenever he thought of the 5 pages of Truth's main body and the contracted sacred source life form, the 3rd page Eternal Sin felt that his guess was unlikely. However, the 3rd page Eternal Sin was certain of one thing. The 2nd page Revival must have provoked something incredible. At the same time, the 3rd page Eternal Sin had a strong interest in the thing that could increase the 2nd page Revival's sin value by such a large margin. At that moment, the 2nd page Revival's voice was no longer melodious or mournful. Instead, it spoke with a lifeless accent. One of the 3 gardener's konjac seeds that I planted in the Radiance Federation is out of my control. After saying that, the 2nd page Revival paused slightly and changed his words. A crimson gold thing erased all my imprints on the gardener's konjac, including my aura. The 2nd page Revival's words made everyone's faces surge with horror. Wasn't the gardener's konjac the disgusting thing that the 2nd page Revival cultivated from that place? How could this thing be controlled by someone? How did the 2nd page Revival's aura get erased? At that moment, the figure under the rose-red robe spoke for the first time since the start of the meeting. The voice under the rose-red robe was very pleasant to listen to. The voice was mixed with a magnetic low frequency and a pleasant high frequency. It actually made people unable to distinguish the gender for a moment. The Azure Federation will send a mission to the Radiance Federation. I don't know the purpose of the Azure Federation going to the Radiance Federation this time, but the person leading the team is Lan Sun. With Lan Sun leading the team, the purpose of the Azure Federation's trip is definitely not simple. In the next few months, the Radiance Federation will definitely be in chaos. Since the 2nd page Revival's gardener's konjac seed has a problem in the Radiance Federation, a part of our plan must be completed in the Radiance Federation. This time, Why don't two of you go to the Radiance Federation and complete the plan? Then, bring back the gardener's konjac seed. This kind of thing definitely cannot be left outside. The person who controls the gardener's konjac seed can sense other people who are parasitized by the gardener's konjac seed. If a gardener's konjac seed is left outside, it will not be good for the implementation of our plan. As soon as the voice faded, the second page revival, who had returned to her girl-next-door state, obediently pushed up the glasses on her face and chanted, "It's my gardener's konjac that lost a seed. This time, let me go to the Radiance Federation." After the second page revival finished speaking for a long time, the other pages did not join in the conversation about going to the Radiance Federation with him. At that moment, the figure hidden in the rose-red robe spoke again. Since the second page revival has taken the initiative to go, the sixth page whip will be accompanied by you. Your sacred source life form, the Black Mass Cup, happens to be compatible with the second page revival's sacred source life form, the Death Messenger Angel. Keep a low profile when you go to the Radiance Federation this time. Don't leave in such a sorry state like the previous time when the fifth page truth went to the Radiance Federation. After saying that, the figure in the rose-red robe no longer spoke. It was so quiet that it was as if she had never participated in the eighth page council. When the sixth page whip, who had always disliked the second page revival, heard the words of the figure in the rose-red robe, he did not refute it even though he was extremely unwilling. Chapter 1072. The 8-page meeting was still going on, but the wind blowing southeast was getting stronger and stronger. The wind swept up the yellow sand, waves, and withered leaves toward the Radiance continent. A storm was unknowingly gathering on the Radiance continent. Just as all sorts of winds were blowing toward the Radiance Federation, the Radiance Federation's army suddenly appeared. He had teleported to the place where Endless Summer had experienced the creation calamity and become a creation breed through the ethereal jellyfish's ability node. It didn't take long for Lin Yuan, who had revisited this place, to be stunned by the scene in front of him. He wondered if he had come to the wrong place. This place was originally a desolate stone field outside the capital. After Endless Summer experienced the calamity of world creation here, this desolate stone land became unrecognizable from the calamity of world creation. However, in just a few days, this desolate stone land actually had giant trees that were nearly 20 meters tall and green grass that almost reached Lin Yuan's neck. These trees and grass were extremely ordinary plants, and they couldn't even be considered as fays. It was unknown what kind of shocking fortuitous encounter these grass and trees, which couldn't even be considered ordinary fays, had obtained. They had actually transformed into elite fays in just a few days. Lin Yuan looked into the distance. His eyes were filled with lush greenery, and everything in front of him was full of vitality. It was as if they were in the depths of an endless forest. However, the vegetation in the distance was not as lush as the vegetation under his feet. It could be said that the place he had teleported to was the origin of all the vegetation growth. Suddenly, he thought of the rain of flowers that had fallen from Endless Summer's branches during the creation calamity. It must have been that falling red that had given this place a chance of life. It could be said that this vitality was a calamity for Endless Summer, but at the same time, it was also an opportunity for the tens of thousands of living beings here. If he were to open the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach pouch and put Endless Summer, When Yu, and Ji Feng down, the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach pouch, with Endless Summer's help, the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily advanced from the peak of Myth 2 to Myth 3. Even if Endless Summer could use the power of the Rule World to protect the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily, not letting them suffer any damage. However, it definitely wouldn't be able to protect the tens of thousands of living beings who had just obtained fortuitous encounters. Fortuitous encounters were hard to come by, let alone one obtained from a mortal object. He activated the source sand and let the 4 black wings formed by the day and night spirit silver's feathers seep out of the source sand. Lin Yuan flapped his 4 black wings and flew into the distance. After flying for nearly half an hour, Lin Yuan found another desolate wasteland without any living creatures. After landing on this wasteland, Lin Yuan shook the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach sac. Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng were released. After being released, Wen Yu and Endless Summer were still worried about Lin Yuan's situation. The two of them went forward to confirm that Lin Yuan was fine before being relieved. At this moment, Ji Feng seemed to have changed into a different person. His face was filled with vitality. His brows were no longer tightly furrowed. It could be said that Ji Feng had already lived the way a person who held hope should live. Although the new Ji Feng was still filled with hatred, he was no longer confused about the future. Ji Feng planned to risk his life to repay Lin Yuan during these 3 years and take revenge 3 years later. If he died, everything would disappear. If he was lucky enough to succeed in his revenge, he would return to Lin Yuan's side and continue to fulfill his duties as a servant. As for the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily's advancement to Myth 3, Ji Feng was no longer worried. With the Monarch class creation breed Endless Summer around, the Myth 3 world cleansing was just a small matter. Even if the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily broke through to Myth 3 at the same time and descended 2 world cleanses, Endless Summer could easily deal with them. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt a chaotic and disorderly wind rushing toward him and the others from all directions. The sky was filled with thick clouds, but these clouds were not formed by cumulonimbus clouds. Instead, the strong wind gathered the thin flowing clouds together, causing the thin flowing clouds to stack and form a huge and thick white cloud cluster. This was a typical strong wind phenomenon. Sensing the new weather, Lin Yuan immediately summoned Gray out of the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After Lin Yuan summoned Gray, Endless Summer's pupils suddenly shrank. Endless Summer took a deep look at Lin Yuan and Gray, which was summoned by Lin Yuan, and then immediately circulated the world of enlightenment's power. It shielded the space within a 1-kilometer radius, preventing anyone from probing this area. Even if there was a life form stronger than Endless Summer and discovered the abnormality here. If it wanted to break through Endless Summer's world of enlightenment's power to investigate, Endless Summer would be able to immediately defend against it. After Lin Yuan summoned Gray, it happily flew around Lin Yuan a few times. Then, it plunged into Lin Yuan's arms and flopped non-stop. Although Lin Yuan knew that Gray liked to act coquettishly, he did not expect Gray, whose body had recovered and transformed, to like sticking to him even more than genius. Through his perception, Lin Yuan knew that this little fellow was greedy for the current strong wind phenomenon. However, it insisted on staying in his arms and did not even absorb the strong wind phenomenon. Lin Yuan said helplessly, "Gray, go to the sky and absorb the strong wind phenomenon. Gray, go to the sky and absorb the strong wind phenomenon. This way, you will have another ability, and your exclusive skill, Pact of the Precious Jade, will be able to condense a new precious jade pattern. At that time, you will have one more jade beast under your control." After witnessing the power of Gray's abilities after absorbing the natural weather, Lin Yuan had long been looking forward to the abilities Gray would obtain after absorbing the new weather. At the same time, he would occasionally guess what the treasure jade beast formed by the new jade pattern would look like. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's command, Gray reluctantly rose into the air from Lin Yuan's embrace and turned into a cloud that covered an area of nearly 2,000 square meters. The strong wind in the strong wind phenomenon was a little too strong. Lin Yuan stood on the ground and felt as though there were people pushing him from all directions. This was just the strength of the strong wind on the ground. The strong wind in the sky formed a much stronger airflow than on the ground. Gray, which was only at bronze, was obviously affected by the strong airflow. Lin Yuan was not surprised about this. Gray's weather cloud transformation might have turned Gray's body into a cloud. However, Gray was still a living being. Even if Gray had an affinity with weather, some violent weather would still have a serious impact on Gray. However, this impact was infinitely reduced due to Gray's affinity with weather. Gray was very proficient in absorbing the clear sky chi image and the cloudy sky chi image. However, when it absorbed the snowy weather image, Lin Yuan could feel Gray shivering from the cold. Chapter 1073. The snowy weather's influence on Gray was the same as the gale weather's influence on Gray now. Gray was contending with the violent airflow in the sky, so that the cloud it had turned into would not be blown away by the gale. At the same time, Gray also started to absorb the gale weather. In fact, Lin Yuan was not worried about Gray's resistance to the weather. As Gray absorbed more and more of the phenomenon, its rank would also increase. When Gray's grade reached a certain level, the intensity of the cloud it had turned into would also increase. This way, when Gray absorbed the weather, it would not be affected by some extreme weather. For example, if it encountered the thunderstorm weather, even if it knew that Gray would obtain a new ability after absorbing the thunderstorm weather, its strength would still increase. However, Lin Yuan still did not dare to let Gray absorb the thunderstorm weather. It was very likely that before Gray could absorb the thunderstorm weather, the thunderstorm weather's lightning would severely injure it. Sensing the increasingly messy wind, Lin Yuan knew that the gale weather would not stop for a while. Lin Yuan simply let Gray freely absorb the gale weather in the sky. Then he turned to Ji Feng and said, "Ji Feng, summon your two-phase." Ji Feng, summon your two-phase. Although the Karma Sword Orchid suffered some injuries to help me, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the Karma Sword Orchid doesn't need to endure the world cleansing. According to the agreement, I will take 10% of each phase world cleansing. The remaining 90% will also help the Karma Sword Orchid recover quickly. Upon hearing that, Ji Feng immediately summoned the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus. He also removed the mimicry of the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily. After removing their mimicry, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus grew in the wind. The Karma Sword Orchid turned into a 5-meter-tall giant orchid with dozens of dark green leaves growing all over its body. The two sides of the Karma Sword Orchid's dark green leaves flashed with cold light like sharp swords. The stalk growing from the center of the leaves was filled with black and white orchids that constantly swallowed and spat out light-type energy. The surging light-type energy made Lin Yuan feel that the surrounding environment had become brighter. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt a strong power of karma from the Karma Sword Orchid. This kind of power that could control karma had the smell of laws. Presumably, the laws that this Karma Sword Orchid controlled were the karma laws that could control karma. The water lily was still inconspicuous after removing its camouflage. The lotus bud was still hidden in the lotus leaves. As for the advanced water lily's leaf shape, it was no different from ordinary lotus species phase. If one had to make a detailed comparison, one could at most say that the color of the lotus leaves was a little darker. Among all the myth-breed phase Lin Yuan had seen, which one was the most inconspicuous? In that case, it would definitely be the water lily. But looks didn't mean anything. This seemingly inconspicuous myth-breed fae, the prophecy water lotus, was actually a fae with powerful abilities that could predict the future. Presumably, the foretelling water lily had grasped the foretelling law. Right at this moment, the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lotus suddenly erupted with powerful spiritual power. Then, his powerful mental power began to materialize. A man with black hair and white eyes appeared in front of the Karma Gladiolus. He looked to be in his 20s or 30s. After ordering the water lily, a young woman in her early 20s appeared in front of him. She had an ordinary appearance but an extremely pure and holy aura. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan knew that the images of the black-haired, white-eyed man and the ordinary-looking, holy woman were the manifestations of the Karma Gladiolus and the pre-command water lotus spiritual energy. Although Myth 2 plant species phase could not take human form like animal species phase, they had grasped this spiritual power materialization ability. It was just that this materialized spiritual energy couldn't be too far away from the main body. When he had first met Endless Summer, it had also used this ability. Presumably, after the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily of Advance had taken human forms, they were also trying to materialize their appearances with their mental energy. While Lin Yuan was probing the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus, the Karma Sword Orchid suddenly appeared. Lin Yuan saw the black-haired, white-eyed man formed by the Karma Sword Orchid's spiritual energy slowly look at the woman with an ordinary appearance and holy temperament. "Renji, why are you acting so weird today?" A confused expression appeared on the face of the ordinary-looking and holy woman that the water lily had transformed into. "Jianin, what's wrong? How am I strange?" Upon hearing that, the black-haired, white-eyed man revealed a shy expression. "You look so good." Upon hearing the Karma Sword Orchid's words, the water lily also revealed a shy expression. The love and affection between the two of them were about to overflow. The words of the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lily made Lin Yuan, endless summer, and when you feel a thick layer of goosebumps. Why did they start to forcefully open someone's mouth and feed them dog food? Moreover, the taste of this dog food was too tacky. Previously, when Lin Yuan had found out about the relationship between Duan He and Purple Demon, he had felt that he had opened a door to a new world. Duan He had let Lin Yuan know that fays could actually be raised as wives. Now, Ji Feng had opened another door for Lin Yuan. Raising fays with feelings could also nurture a pair of lovers, and then they could be together and eat dog food every day. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Ji Feng walk between the water lily and the Karma gladiolus. He reached out and placed one hand on the shoulder of the black-haired, white-eyed man, while the other hand on the shoulder of the ordinary-looking and holy woman that the water lily had transformed into. The atmosphere between the three of them was very harmonious. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan revealed a puzzled expression. The two of them were dating, so why was Ji Feng going over to join in the fun? When Ji Feng saw the puzzled expression on Lin Yuan's face, he smiled and explained without any shyness. "It's very natural for the three of us to be together." Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan felt as though his entire body was splitting apart. At the same time, Ji Feng's words had once again opened a new door for Lin Yuan. It turned out that nurturing a pair of fey lovers could not only be a CP, but they could also be a CP. Could this be Ji Feng's true happiness? The world of adults was truly too difficult to understand. Ji Feng cuddled with the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lily for a while before speaking. "Jian Yin, Lotus Awareness, both of you will trigger the world cleansing. Endless Summer will help you withstand the world cleansing's attack. You just have to wait for the world cleansing to end and the world grace to descend." The Karma gladiolus and water lily shrunk their necks. Clearly, the pressure from Endless Summer's aura had left them with lingering fear. Chapter 1074. However, when they heard Ji Feng say that Endless Summer could help them through the world cleansing, the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily quickly expressed their gratitude to Endless Summer. When Endless Summer heard this, she hurriedly waved her hand. Then, she solemnly and sincerely apologized to Ji Feng, ordering the Water Lily and Karma Sword Orchid in advance for releasing their auras. Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and Water Lily expressed their understanding. In that situation, it would be strange if Endless Summer did not guard against them. After apologizing, Endless Summer said, "You guys just need to trigger the world cleansing together. Leave everything else to me." After speaking, Endless Summer stood in place with its hands behind its back, waiting for the arrival of the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily's world cleansing. The Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily quickly released their Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 2 phase auras. A black and white Karma Law rune and a Prediction Law rune formed by a holy aura rushed into the sky. Sensing the auras emitted by the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily, two large holes appeared in the sky. Sensing the aura emitted by the Karma Sword Orchid and the Water Lily Law rune, two large holes appeared in the sky. The big holes released thick dark red flames that were like viscous liquid. Thick dark red flames were released from the hole. These flames were like viscous liquid. The world cleansing that plant-type phase had to go through to Myth 3 was usually a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. The world cleansing that plant-type phase had to go through to Myth 3 was generally a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. It could be said that this world cleansing was extremely lethal to plant-type phase. When Endless Summer had gone through the world cleansing, the sky had also descended a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. Suddenly, Lin Yuan realized that Gray was excited when it saw the two big holes in the sky. It was about to drill into the two big holes that the world cleansing had created. Lin Yuan hurriedly stopped Gray with cold sweat. Currently, Gray's rank was only at the bronze rank. If Gray entered the two large holes, it would definitely die. If it drilled into those two big holes, Lin Yuan would probably have to say goodbye to Gray forever. Even if it was a blessed Fae, it still had no chance of survival under the world cleansing of Myth 3. After being stopped by Lin Yuan, Gray left the two big holes that the world cleansing had created, feeling wronged. It was like a good baby in the distance, obediently absorbing the strong wind aura. Through Gray's actions, Lin Yuan knew that as a blessed Fae, Gray could absorb the world cleansing. In other words, the heavenly baptism itself was a kind of phenomenon. This discovery made Lin Yuan look forward to it and excited. On one hand, he was looking forward to Gray's ability after absorbing the world cleansing. On the other hand, he was looking forward to when Gray could grow to the point where it could absorb the world cleansing. Soon, the combined attack of the two world baptisms descended from the sky. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this wave of attacks had the feeling of heavenly fire burning a city. Endless Summer did not move in the face of the incoming attack. Just as the attacks were about to land on the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily, Endless Summer waved her hand and shouted, "Flower Tree Bind!" Along with Endless Summer's voice, several flexible and thick roots emerged from the ground under Endless Summer's feet. These roots were mixed together, and they were like two raging dragons as they welcomed the two heavenly flames that descended from the Myth 3 world baptism. After the dragon-like roots came into contact with the heavenly fire, the roots suddenly swept towards the heavenly fire furiously. At the same time, densely packed willow branches grew out of the roots, and the willow branches kept sprouting new leaves. Not only were these willow branches and new leaves not burned by the dark red heavenly fire, but they also seemed to be wantonly absorbing the energy of the world baptism's heavenly fire. Finally, the willow branches' new leaves bore pinkish-purple flower buds in the heavenly fire. After the pinkish-purple flower buds grew, the world baptism's heavenly fire attack also started to gradually weaken. The flower buds that covered the sky were like ants that had been starving for countless years, desperately squeezing out the energy of the world baptism's heavenly fire. In an instant, the tree of flower buds bloomed into pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers. After the hydrangea flowers bloomed, the world baptism's heavenly fire attack's energy rapidly weakened. At this time, two fruits also appeared in the dense willow branches. After these two fruits grew, the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily's world baptism was completely eliminated. It could be said that Endless Summer's one attack was able to resist the Myth 3 world baptism, which was rather restrained against plant-type phase. This made Lin Yuan even more aware of the huge gap between creation breed phase and myth breed phase. This was a chasm that could not be easily crossed. Even though the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily's world baptism's heavenly fire attack had ended, Endless Summer's flowery tree binding kill had yet to end. The pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers and the lush willow branches that covered the sky were competing to wither, and the withered branches and petals were in a mess. It was as though the sky was filled with pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers and willow branches just to ferment these two new fruits. Endless Summer flew up and plucked the two bright red fruits when the sky of flowery trees turned to dust. Upon seeing this scene, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check Endless Summer's exclusive skill. Lin Yuan remembered that he had checked the Mother of Bloodbath's exclusive skill before, but he had never checked Endless Summer's. Especially after Endless Summer had become a creation breed, Lin Yuan had not used it. Previously, Lin Yuan had always regarded Endless Summer as a support, but now it seemed that Endless Summer's attack power was definitely not weak. Fey name: Endless Divine Dream Summer, Fey species. Brocade/Hydrangea, Fey grade. Monarch, 1/10. Fey type: Wood/Psychic Fey quality. Eye Creation Calamity abilities: Frowny Face Summer's Shooting Spear. With the flower vines as the shaft and the flowers as the blade, form a shooting spear with the armor-piercing effect to penetrate the target. Flower Ball Shotgun. The flower ball spins and scatters petals. Each petal will cause a cutting effect to the target. At the same time, the petal has a slight blood-sucking effect to replenish the energy consumed by the body. Shooting Spear: 3,000 shots. Instantly condense 3,000 shooting spears that are connected to each other. When one of the spears hits the target, the other spears will automatically return to their positions. Midsummer Cage uses the flowers and vines to form a cage world with summer as the origin. Uses the power of midsummer to confine everything in the cage. Mind Stop uses the body's mind to affect the target's mind, causing the target's mind to be absent-minded for a moment. Thus, the target's body and soul cannot be controlled immediately. Flowering Tree Bind. The tree roots grow in reverse and bind the target. The roots will pierce through the target's body and grow inside the target's body. At the same time, it will absorb the target's energy and store it in the body, forming a forbidden fruit of summer. Willow Flower Covers the Sky. Releases all the energy and vitality in the body, allowing the energy and vitality to grow freely. The entire world will be filled with willow flowers. The more willow flowers there are, the stronger the increase in strength. At the same time, the willow flowers will frenziedly extract the energy from every target's body. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Blossoming Flowers. During the growth process, as the strength increases, the number of flowers that bloom will multiply. At the same time, it will increase the lethality of abilities that rely on the flowers. Thousand Apertures Heart. The heart will open up 1,000 apertures. Every aperture in the heart will increase the control of the spirit power. Summer's End. Transform the body into summer and fuse the power of summer into a single point. After a single strike, the midsummer will end. Withering Everything. The flower vines will coil around and absorb the energy of everything and convert it into its own energy. When the body's energy reaches its limit, the overflowing energy will form an energy veil on the body's surface to resist the damage. When looking at Endless Summer's true data, Lin Yuan felt his scalp go numb. He had previously checked the Slaughter Sky Butterfly's true data, and it could be said that the Slaughter Sky Butterfly had given him quite a surprise. However, from the looks of it, Endless Summer's bloodline metamorphosis was much stronger than the Slaughter Sky Butterfly. Chapter 1075. The Slaughter Sky Butterfly was one of the 3 supreme bloodlines of Butterfly Phase. Based on true data, Endless Summer's bloodline was slightly stronger than the Slaughter Sky Butterfly's bloodline. What level had Endless Summer's bloodline reached? Moreover, Endless Summer's abilities were too strange. Endless Summer's Shooting Gun of Summer, Flower Ball Shotgun, 3,000 Shots, and Midsummer's Cage. Should these 4 abilities really appear on a support-type Fae? Even if these 4 abilities appeared on a power offense-type Fae, they would still seem rather violent. Endless Summer's abilities were simply too unorthodox. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt that Endless Summer's Fae should not be called Endless Divine Dream Summer. It should be called Endless Divine Dream Absorb. Among them, Flower Tree Bind, Willow Cover the Sky, and Endless Summer's exclusive skill, Withering Everything, were all abilities that absorbed the energy of other targets to feed back to itself. Even the offensive skill, the Flower Ball Shotgun, had the effect of absorbing the opponent's life force when it attacked and dealt damage to the target. The more Lin Yuan analyzed Endless Summer's abilities, the more he felt that Endless Summer was simply a juicer. When Endless Summer was fighting with others, it could constantly extract the energy of the opponent and the surrounding environment. As long as the target did not have an overwhelming advantage over Endless Summer could use its perverted extraction ability to fight forever. With Endless Summer's contracted sacred source life form, Arakawa Orchid Sprout, its endurance became even stronger. Arakawa Orchid Sprout added defense, orchids healed, and orchids healed souls. It could be said that Arakawa Orchid Sprout could perfectly provide all-round protection and endurance to Endless Summer from 3 aspects. When Arakawa Orchid Sprout produced more individuals in the swamp world, it would also provide Endless Summer with a huge amount of energy. It would allow Endless Summer, which was at full power, to turn into a perpetual juicer. After checking Endless Summer's true data, Lin Yuan realized that he had been underestimating Endless Summer's strength. Lin Yuan finally faced Endless Summer's power head-on. Just as Lin Yuan was lamenting Endless Summer's power, Endless Summer had already walked in front of him. It smiled and placed 2 red fruits that looked like tomatoes in Lin Yuan's hand. Each of these 2 summer burn fruits contains a myth 3 fire element world cleansing attack. Lin Yuan, take these 2 summer burn fruits. When you encounter enemies, you can throw them out as hidden weapons. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched violently, and he hurriedly reached out to take the 2 tomato-sized summer burn fruits. Based on Endless Summer's true data and the flowery tree's binding kill, he clearly knew how this summer burn fruit was formed. The 2 summer burning fruits were left behind after Endless Summer's flowering tree binding kill absorbed the world cleansing. A summer burn fruit that contained the attack of a myth 3 world baptism could be said to be a one-time strategic treasure. It was just that the area covered by the mythological 3 mirrors world baptism was simply too great. It was unable to target a single target. Using the summer burn fruit might harm innocent people. Even if it was used in the Divine Wood Federation, which was full of plants, it was likely to cause a large-scale disaster. He solemnly placed the 2 fruits into the amber button-shaped diamond Fey storage box in case of emergencies. Then he used Morbius' exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss, under the feet of the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily. A large amount of white sand covered the area where the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily were. Next, it was the moment that Lin Yuan had been looking forward to. He was finally going to obtain a large number of spirit chi crystals through the 2 myth 3 world baptisms. It was said that it was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but it was difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. That was the truth. Ever since Lin Yuan had used the Pure Land of Bliss to absorb the cold snow pines world grace from the world baptism, he had obtained a massive amount of spirit chi crystals. He could never forget the feeling of holding a massive amount of spirit chi crystals and using them at will. Radiance dollars were not omnipotent in the main world, but spirit chi crystals could solve most problems in the main world. Lin Yuan had been able to win the civil and martial duels at the Nyx General Assembly because of his special physique. However, in the martial duels he had mainly relied on his sacred source life form, the sacred sword embracing queen. Lin Yuan had been using Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, when he had been fighting Zhongzhe. However, this ability could only be executed on the premise that his body was immune to elemental damage after receiving the law feedback from the princess dress. Without elemental immunity, even if Lin Yuan had excellent movement techniques and powerful combat skills, he would still be burned to ashes by Zhongzhe's Sea of Fire. Combat skills and movement techniques, which had been eliminated and forgotten by the times, could only be the icing on the cake in certain situations. Things like combat techniques and movement techniques, which had been eliminated and forgotten by the times, could only be used in certain situations as icing on the cake. During the battle with Zhongzhe, Lin Yuan did not want to summon his phase and expose his identity. On the one hand, Lin Yuan did not want to summon his phase and expose his identity during the battle with Zhongzhe. On the other hand, he really could not summon his phase. Even if it was the strongest Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily or the Diamond X/Legend Ethereal Jellyfish, they would not even have a chance to resist. Under Zhongzhe's Burning Sky Ho's exclusive skill, Fire Fantasy Town, they would not even have a chance to resist and would be instantly killed. Although Lin Yuan had obtained victory in that battle, he had also discovered his biggest problem. This problem was that his phase grades were seriously out of sync. No matter how talented his phase were, they seemed to be of little value. Therefore, Lin Yuan needed to use the spirit chi crystals to quickly raise his phase grades. Each of Lin Yuan's phase could be said to be extremely luxurious to nurture. Even Class 5 creation masters could not concoct pure spirit chi, so each of Lin Yuan's phase could wantonly drink it. There was also an inexhaustible supply of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls and excellent high-end resources. Lin Yuan had truly strived to make every step of his phase growth to the best of his phase. With such an influx of resources, as long as the phase grades were raised, they were bound to erupt with unimaginable power. At that moment, 2 world grace descended from the 2 large holes on the top of the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily's heads. Upon seeing the world grace descending, the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily stood in place. They did not get up to face the sky and absorb the world cleansing that descended after the world grace. They had already been informed by Ji Feng that they needed to provide world grace to Lin Yuan as a reward for helping them through the world cleansing. The Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily did not have the slightest displeasure. Instead, they were very grateful to Lin Yuan and Endless Summer. Chapter 1076. Due to their species and comprehension of laws, the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Sword Orchid had powerful functionality and a certain degree of offensive power. But in terms of defense, it was very weak. Therefore, in order to be safe, Ji Feng had suggested that his two Fays must not be harmed by the world cleansing. Without Lin Yuan, Ji Feng would not have been able to successfully reach Myth 3. Moreover, Lin Yuan had also dealt with the strange plant life form that had been residing in Ji Feng's body for 10 years, which had put him in danger. To be honest, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus might be more grateful for Lin Yuan's help than Ji Feng himself. Even if Lin Yuan took all of the world cleansing, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus would not feel anything wrong. However, they were still reluctant. After all, the world cleansing was very important to myth breed Fays that had just improved their quality. After all, the world cleansing was very important to a myth breed Fay that had just improved its quality. The impact of losing 10% was not big, but it would take a long time for them to recover. When the world grace reached the heads of the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Sword Orchid, they even took the initiative to avoid the world grace. Under normal circumstances, according to Lin Yuan's character, Ji Feng would have joined Sky City and become one of them, and he would not have asked to absorb the world grace of Ji Feng's contracted phase. However, the spirit chi crystals were too important, and Lin Yuan could not give them up. If Lin Yuan did not need the spirit chi crystals in the beginning, he would not have thought of helping an Emperor-class expert's Fei to survive the world cleansing. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not hesitate to absorb the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus's world grace. The two Myth 3 world grace landed on the Pure Land of Bliss, and the white sand on the Pure Land of Bliss in Lin Yuan's Spirit Lock spatial zone was as bright as day. A massive amount of spirit chi crystals kept seeping out of the Pure Land of Bliss in the Spirit Lock spatial zone one after another. It looked very magnificent. Lin Yuan was not sure how many spirit chi crystals his Spirit Lock spatial zone had produced during the process of absorbing the two world grace. However, the number of new spirit chi crystals was at least double that of the previous time. Sensing the increasing number of spirit chi crystals in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a bright smile. After Morbius advanced to a silver/fantasy breed, the effect of its spirit energy condensation had also improved. In terms of effect, the newly condensed spirit chi crystal could be 10 times more effective than the spirit chi crystal condensed by Morbius when it was at bronze/legend. In other words, the spirit chi crystals produced by Morbius were no longer like before, which could only increase a silver fantasy breed phase grade by 1. Now, every spirit chi crystal produced in the Spirit Lock spatial zone could raise a gold/fantasy breed by 1 grade. With these spirit chi crystals, in addition to his own use, even the spirit chi crystals consumed by the Mother of Bloodbath's metamorphosis into a favored spirit would be guaranteed to a certain extent. At this thought, Lin Yuan's body stiffened slightly. He recalled that when Gray had transformed into a favored spirit, it had wantonly absorbed spirit chi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, causing the Spirit Lock spatial zone to be in a state of spirit chi depletion for about 5 minutes. From this point alone, Lin Yuan felt that his spirit chi crystals might not be enough for the Mother of Bloodbath to transform into a favored spirit. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to continue to work hard to collect spirit chi crystals. It seemed that the exchange information on StarWeb would need to continue to exist for a period of time. As the spirit chi crystals in the Spirit Lock spatial zone continued to increase, the Pure Land of Bliss absorbed more and more world grace. After absorbing more than 9% of the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus's world grace and less than 10%, the Pure Land of Bliss had a huge sense of rejection toward the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus's world grace. Lin Yuan knew that the Pure Land of Bliss could no longer absorb more world grace after the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus had gone through the Myth 3 world cleansing. Lin Yuan simply returned the remaining world grace to the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus. After the Command Water Lotus absorbed 90% of the world grace, its spiritual energy materialization of an ordinary-looking woman with a holy temperament became corporeal. The inconspicuous plant body of the Command Water Lotus also rapidly shrunk and turned into a small hairpin. There was a thick layer of dark green lotus leaves on the hairpin. Upon a closer look, one could faintly see a flower bud emitting a holy and mysterious aura hidden in the lotus leaves. The ordinary-looking woman with a holy temperament took the hairpin and did not wear the body weaponization hairpin on her hair as a decoration. Instead, she lifted up all her hair and hid the hairpin in the middle of her hair. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. What kind of low-profile fae was the Suzerain/Myth 3 Command Water Lotus? Not only did its body look so inconspicuous, but its body weaponization also looked very ordinary. Finally, the body weaponization hairpin was actually hidden in the middle of her hair. Of course, Lin Yuan, who was used to seeing tricks, thought of another possibility. Perhaps the Command Water Lotus was not only low profile, but it was also a sly old fox that was more black-bellied than endless summer. At that moment, the Command Water Lotus had successfully reached Myth 3, but the Karma Gladiolus's evolution had just begun. As the Karma Gladiolus had been severely injured, its progress was slower than the Command Water Lotus when it absorbed 90% of the world grace. However, right after the Command Water Lotus, the Karma Gladiolus spiritual energy materialization of the black-haired, white-eyed man also became corporeal. After the black-haired, white-eyed youth became corporeal, the Karma Gladiolus's main body suddenly swayed. The sword-like leaves rustled and set off a sky full of resolute sword shadows. Finally, it turned into a dark green longsword. This dark green longsword looked rather elegant. The dark green blade had orchid leaf patterns on it, and each of the orchid leaf patterns exuded a sharp aura. The original black and white orchid had turned into a long sword tassel. The sword tassel that the black and white lotus had turned into was constantly swallowing the karma power. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. The Karma Gladiolus's main body turned into a weapon was rather good-looking. After the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus reached Myth 3, the happiest person was Ji Feng. Looking at the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus that could turn into human form, Ji Feng's smile never stopped. Upon seeing Ji Feng going over to show off his affection to the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus, Lin Yuan decisively turned his head and chose to ignore them. It was unknown when the strong wind had stopped, but gray in the sky had started to absorb the sunny weather. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan called Gray over. Upon hearing Lin Yuan call it, Gray, which was in the clouds, suddenly plunged into Lin Yuan's arms. Gray's sudden plunge was a little too fierce, and Lin Yuan almost fell on his butt. Chapter 1077. Lin Yuan reached out to touch the fourth white jade ornament on Gray's body and then checked the new ability that Gray had obtained after absorbing the strong wind weather phenomenon. Wind weather's roar. Transform the weather in an area covered by clouds into wind weather. At the same time, creatures within the range will be marked with the wind weather mark. When friendly targets use wind-type abilities in the wind weather, their lethality will be increased. When enemies use wind-type abilities in the wind weather, they will suffer from a series of negative effects such as countercurrent and wind pressure. Lin Yuan raised his brows when he saw that Gray had absorbed the strong wind weather phenomenon. Wind weather's roar was not very useful to Lin Yuan because he did not have a contract with a wind-type fae. However, wind weather's roar's negative effects on enemies, such as countercurrent and wind pressure, could have a certain degree of control over local movements. The more Gray wind weather phenomenon absorbed, the stronger the wind weather phenomenon's roar's control effect would be. Moreover, the control effect of wind weather phenomenon's roar was a large-scale control effect. When the floating island whale rose into the air, Gray turned into clouds and enveloped it, forming a speed bump around the floating island whale. Any creature that approached the floating island whale would immediately be slowed down and entangled by wind pressure and airflow. Thus, wind weather phenomenon's roar was considered a good ability. Then, Lin Yuan asked Gray to use its exclusive skill, Jade Pact. The white jade ornament on Gray's body immediately turned into a horse beast with airflow wrapped around its body. This horse beast made of airflow looked somewhat like Redbud City Lordess Ling Zhao's diamond/fantasy blue jade Pegasus. However, Gray's exclusive skill, Jade Pact, was a white jade-patterned horse beast without wings. After this horse beast appeared, it immediately released several airflows that were like shackles. These airflows that were like shackles could be very good at grabbing and squeezing objects, which meant that they had both attack and control abilities. Lin Yuan used his hand to touch Gray's indistinct but tangible feathers and said with admiration, "Gray is really getting stronger." After receiving Lin Yuan's praise, the cloud in front of Gray suddenly turned into a huge heart shape. The heart-shaped cloud enveloped Lin Yuan as if Gray was giving him a heart. Seeing that Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and the Water Lily were done showing off their affection, Lin Yuan stored Gray in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Seeing that Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and the Water Lily were done showing off their affection, Lin Yuan stored Gray in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. At that moment, Endless Summer walked to Lin Yuan's side and said softly, "Lin Yuan, try not to let your favored spirit casually absorb the weather outside." Upon seeing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan frowned slightly. He did not understand what Endless Summer meant. As a heaven and earth spirit creature, Gray needed to absorb natural energy to increase its strength. If it didn't come out to absorb the qi, then Gray's strength would be stuck at this stage. However, Lin Yuan knew that Endless Summer would never speak without thinking or say something like that for a reason. Just as Lin Yuan was about to ask Endless Summer, it explained to him with a serious expression. It's true that all blessed spirits absorb nature's energy to increase their strength, but different blessed spirits' absorption of nature's energy will overlap. Even if they are very far away, the depletion of the unique nature energy will attract the attention of other heavenly chosen. At the same time, some of the more powerful heaven-blessed spirits are able to detect the existence of other heaven-blessed spirits through the unnatural changes in natural energy. Lin Yuan, if you let Gray absorb the qi at will, it is very likely that the other blessed spirits have already noticed it. Be it spirit qi professionals or fays that reach the Emperor class, they will also be able to sense the changes in heaven and earth's natural energy. If Gray happens to be noticed by other Emperor class experts when it absorbs the qi, they will be able to discover Gray's identity as a blessed spirit. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan immediately knew that he had been too careless. He did not expect that Gray's absorption of the qi would attract the attention of other blessed spirits and Emperor class experts. It seemed that he could not let Gray freely absorb the qi outside in the future. Otherwise, it might cause a disaster due to Gray's identity as a blessed spirit. At that moment, Ji Feng had already stored the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily back into his spiritual spatial zone. The Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily had just reached Myth 3, so they still needed to quietly familiarize themselves with their strength and the body weaponization weapons in the spiritual spatial zone. At that moment, Ji Feng, who no longer had any worries other than revenge, should have been happy. However, Ji Feng was at a loss. For so many years, Ji Feng's goal in life was to survive. He constantly endured the pain that came from the 3 levels of the mind, soul, and body. Time passed very quickly amidst the constant suffering. In the pain that could come at any time, Ji Feng did not have more time to think about other things. But now that everything was better, Ji Feng realized that he no longer had a home. In order to help Lin Yuan, Ji Feng had even severed all the karma between himself and his family. Although Ji Feng, who had severed the karma, could not remember the appearance of his family due to the disappearance of the karma power, he could still vaguely remember the kinship that had fused into his soul. Just as Ji Feng was feeling sentimental, Lin Yuan walked over and patted on Ji Feng's shoulder. "Do you have any plans later? If not, then come home with us." Upon hearing the first half of Lin Yuan's words, Ji Feng's throat became dry because he did not have any plans. However, when he heard the second half of Lin Yuan's words, he felt that the word home burned his heart. This word dispersed the confusion that had just risen in Ji Feng's heart. Lin Yuan's words gave Ji Feng a warm shelter, a place where he could live again. Ji Feng looked at Lin Yuan with a burning gaze. "Young master, I don't have any plans. I'll just go home with you." After settling everything that needed to be handled, Lin Yuan, Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng naturally could not keep staying in the royal capital's suburbs. Endless Summer, Ji Feng, and Wen Yu once again returned to the treasure artifact made of the treasure cave golden toad's skin and stomach sac. Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's ability node to teleport back to the mansion. It was almost dinner time, and Lu Jie had prepared a table full of good dishes. Lin Yuan introduced Ji Feng to everyone in the mansion. Lin Yuan had originally wanted to welcome Ji Feng at night, but Endless Summer had to be in the Spirit Heron Chamber of Commerce just in case. Therefore, Endless Summer could not eat with everyone in the mansion at night. Listen, Zhou Luo had also been busy recruiting the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's manpower. In order to take over the resources of the veteran faction, the Zheng family in Indigo Azure City would not be flustered due to a lack of manpower. Chapter 1078. Due to various reasons, not everyone in the mansion dined together at night. Thus, Ji Feng could not recognize everyone in the mansion. Ji Feng had already planned to integrate into the mansion, and he would get to know all the people living in the mansion sooner or later. Just as the meal was about to start, Duan He returned to the mansion from the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. As soon as he entered, he smelled the aroma of delicious food. During his time in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, Duan He thought about Lu Jie's food every day. Usually, Listen, Zhou Luo, or Lu Jie and Hu Quan would bring food for Duan He when they went to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. But every time, Duan He felt that he couldn't eat to his heart's content without eating with the others in the manor. Unknowingly, Duan He began to develop a sense of dependence on the return from faraway mansion. In fact, Duan He's main purpose of returning this time was to bid farewell to Lin Yuan and prepare to take Sky City's white-clothed followers to train by using the active period of the dimensional rift. At the same time, he could also improve his combat skills with Purple Demon. Duan He came to Lin Yuan's side and said, "Young master, I'm ready. Young master, I'm ready on my side. Tomorrow morning, I plan to take Lu Jie's new white-clothed followers to the extreme north for 3 months of hard training. Do your best to raise the strength of those white-clothed followers." While speaking, Duan He thought of the bronze/epic phase that Lin Yuan had created for those white-clothed followers according to the willpower rune. These bronze/epic phase created according to the willpower rune allowed the king-class experts, who had no talent but only resources, to undergo a transformation. During the 3 months in the extreme north, Duan He was prepared to be strict. He would use the test of life and death to let these king-class experts grow quickly. Otherwise, Duan He felt that these white-clothed followers were really unworthy of Lin Yuan's high-end resources. Upon hearing Duan He's words, Lin Yuan smiled and nodded. "Senior Duan He, thank you for your hard work. I'll have to trouble you with those white-clothed followers." After saying that, Lin Yuan took out a brocade pouch. The brocade pouch contained 13 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls that had just been produced by the elemental shellfish in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. These were the resources that Lin Yuan intended to leave for Duan He for 3 months for him to use freely. In fact, Lin Yuan had originally planned to let Duan He bring Gray along and help it find different auras to absorb during the training. However, after hearing what Endless Summer had said to him, he had given up on this plan. If a spirit of Heavenly Protector or an Emperor-level powerhouse discovered Gray Ash, not only would Duan He not be able to protect Gray Ash, but Gray Ash would also die. Instead, he would be in danger because of Gray. Duan He took the brocade pouch and looked at the 100 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls in it in a daze. "Senior Duan He, I should be able to harvest a huge batch of high-grade Fey flesh that can help Senior Purple Demon increase his strength in a few days. I'll get Ostrich Logistics to send those high-grade Fey's flesh over. When Lin Yuan had told Zheng Kaiyuan to visit the Return from Faraway Mansion in a few days at the Spirit Food Pavilion, there had been a deeper meaning. When Zheng Kaiyuan came to the Return from Faraway Manor, the Zheng family had already gone through the Blood Oath Extreme Battle and should no longer exist. At that time, Zheng Kaiyuan could only live under the roof of the Miao family like a stray dog. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had lost the backing of the old Zheng family, was like a rootless duckweed. No matter where he went, he would not have the confidence he had before. The more arrogant Zheng Kaiyuan had been in the Miao family, the more people he had offended, the more people would hate him and find trouble behind his back. Therefore, what Zheng Kaiyuan could do was firmly hold on to this line with Lin Yuan and help him get better resources from the Zheng family in order to please him. This was what Lin Yuan wanted. Lin Yuan planned to trade a large number of myth-breed Feis for Duan He in addition to the Law Origin crystals so that the Purple Demon's strength could rapidly increase. Anyway, with a large number of Law Origin crystals, Lin Yuan would only have more and more Law crystals that contained pure power of Law. He could also afford to feed these myth-3 Feis in the Return from Faraway Manor. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Duan He was overjoyed. The Purple Demon's strength could finally increase. Moreover, the suzerain/myth breed Feis that Lin Yuan had given him could not possibly all be dark type, right? When the other heads of the Purple Demon became the main personality, Duan He felt that he could be liberated. At the same time, it would be like changing a wife. Thinking of the sickly personality in the Purple Demon's dark-type head, Duan He lived in fear every day. Perhaps one night, the person next to him would grab his neck and ask, "You're clearly with me. Why did you sneak into the Spirit Food Pavilion with others to eat the saliva snake when you're clearly with me?" As the young family head of the Sea and Sky lineage, Ji Feng's social skills were naturally maxed out. Soon, Ji Feng became familiar with the people he saw in the manor. After eating, when you took Ji Feng to clean up a guest room and transformed it into the room that Ji Feng usually lived in. Since Hu Quan had been in seclusion recently, when you found 3 Class 3 spirit craftsmen in the manor to modify the room according to Ji Feng's requirements. Ji Feng, who had his own room, could be considered to be officially living in the manor. Then, when you also considerately connected the 2 guest rooms next to Ji Feng's room from the inside. The 2 rooms were separated from each other, but they were both connected to Ji Feng's room. These 2 rooms were prepared by Wen Yu for the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily. The Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily had reached Myth 3. After familiarizing themselves with their strength in Ji Feng's spiritual spatial zone, they would have to live outside. Wen Yu naturally did not know how the 3 of them lived. However, this obviously gave Ji Feng enough privacy and space. As for how to build those 2 rooms, Wen Yu let the 3 Class 3 spirit craftsmen stand by first. After the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily came out, they would use their ideas to modify the room. After dealing with these matters, Lin Yuan looked at the increasing number of people in the manor. A faint smile appeared on Wen Yu's face. After dinner, Lin Yuan felt that he could not open his eyes. His upper and lower eyelids seemed to be sticky and wanted to grow together. He had sat in the snow for a day last night and had been busy for another day today. He was still fighting with the strange plant life form in his body under the triple pain of his mind, body, and soul. It could be said that Lin Yuan was really exhausted. Tomorrow morning, he still had to go to the Radiant Moon Palace to meet his master, the Moon Empress, and then have a meal with Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, Long Tao, and the others. Therefore, even though it was just past 8 o'clock in the evening and there were still many things to do, Lin Yuan still planned to go to sleep. Lin Yuan, whose eyelids were fighting, did not even have the energy to check how many spirit chi crystals there were in the spirit lock spatial zone. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his cell phone suddenly rang. Chapter 1079. This time, Lin Yuan's cell phone did not ring. It was a group video message. He picked up his cell phone in a daze and accepted the group video message. He saw that Zhong Zhe, Gu Lang, Gao Feng, Long Tao, Sun Ningxiang, and Li Xian were all in high spirits. Lu Jie had missed the group video call last time because he had been using the insect queen to control the insect carcinoma Fei. However, he was in the mansion this time. He had put on the spirit guard's standard mask before the group video call. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan perked up and sat cross-legged on the bed. Lin Yuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, shook his head in a daze and forced himself to wake up. Upon seeing Lin Yuan's appearance in the video, Zhong Zai, Gu Lang, Long Tao, Li Xian, and the others were shocked. Even Lu Jie was very surprised. After living with Lin Yuan for so long, it was his first time seeing him in such a daze and a little lazy. Lin Yuan now looked like a sunshine boy who was a little sleepy, which made people feel close to him at first glance. In the past, Lin Yuan's appearance in front of everyone was too perfect. After seeing him like this, everyone felt that their relationship with him had invisibly become much closer. Lu Jie had seen that Lin Yuan was listless at the dining table. In Lu Jie's memory, Lin Yuan rarely appeared to be so exhausted. Lu Jie immediately thought that something was wrong with Lin Yuan's body. Just as Lu Jie was about to ask about Lin Yuan's condition, he heard a voice at the same time as him. Lu Jie and Zhong Zai asked the same question in unison. Lin Yuan, are you feeling unwell? Lu Jie and Zhong Zai looked at each other for a moment before looking away. Lin Yuan had already suppressed his sleepiness and used his hand to rub his eyes. I'm fine. I just didn't sleep last night and feel a little sleepy after eating. Gu Lang had been looking at Zhong Zai with a probing gaze since Zhong Zai had asked about Lin Yuan's condition. During the group video chat, Gu Lang had felt that something was wrong with Zhong Zai. He had been helping Lin Yuan without saying anything. He had even wanted to use his creation master resources to reduce Lin Yuan's pressure. This was not at all in line with Zhong Zai's usual character. Zhong Zai, who had always been indifferent to other people's matters, took the initiative to ask about Lin Yuan's situation. This meant that Zhong Zai was worried about Lin Yuan's body. Zhong Zai taking the initiative to care about someone was really too abnormal. Zhong Zai had always disdained to disguise his attitude towards anyone. Even Tianfeng's disciple Zhong Zai wouldn't hesitate to throw his face away when he needed to, not leaving any face behind. However, what puzzled Gu Lang was that Zhong Zai and Lin Yuan had only met a few times. When did the two of them form such a deep friendship? As soon as Lin Yuan finished talking about his situation, Lu Jie spoke first. If there's something, the 8 of us will have a brief discussion first. We'll talk about it in detail during the day. Lin Yuan, I will heat up a cup of light milk tea cow's milk for you in a while. Drinking it can calm your nerves. Lin Yuan nodded in response. Some time ago, Lu Jie participated in a private auction and bought 2 light milk tea cows. Light milk tea cows usually didn't eat grass, only tea. The milk they produced was incomparably mellow, and at the same time, it also had a faint tea fragrance and sweetness. After it was boiled, some equinox fruits with a sleeping effect would be added. With the sweet milk with the tea fragrance and the soft texture of the equinox fruits, one would definitely have a good night's sleep. Lu Jie and Lin Yuan's conversation immediately let everyone capture a piece of information. Lin Yuan and Lu Jie lived together. It could be said that among the 8 people who were currently on the phone, Lu Jie was the most mysterious to Gao Feng, Gu Lang, Zhong Zai, Sun Ningxiang, Long Tao, Li Xian, and the others. Lu Jie had been wearing the spirit guard's standard mask, so no one knew what he looked like behind the mask. Looking at the spirit guard's standard mask on Lu Jie's face, Lin Yuan felt like laughing. In fact, it was reasonable to say that after participating in the Nix assembly, Lu Jie could completely expose his identity, but he didn't. It was unknown if Lu Jie was addicted to wearing the mask. Lu Jie also asked his master, Night Leaning Moon, to create a mask made of 1,000 pieces of machinery for him. This mask made of 1,000 pieces of machinery looked no different from the spirit guard's standard mask. However, it could freely change and combine with the movements of Lu Jie's face. Lu Jie could even wear this mask to eat and drink. When Lu Jie had returned to the mansion with this mask, Hu Quan had been shocked at first glance. Finally, after studying Lu Jie's mask for a day, Hu Quan was somewhat disheartened to find that he could not imitate the mask's machinery at all. This made Hu Quan feel frustrated for the first time since becoming a Class 5 spirit craftsman. This also made Hu Chuanmong full of energy, wanting to improve his spirit craftsman strength again. It was unknown if it was because of this blow, but Hu Quan had already entered seclusion with Lin Yuan's heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan was looking forward to what Hu Quan could weave those heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls into after he came out of seclusion. Gao Feng looked at the listless Lin Yuan and instructed, "Brother, don't stay up late if you have nothing to do. Brother, don't stay up late if you have nothing to do. It's not good for your health. I'll bring you some deep-sea fish brains for tomorrow's dinner. These deep-sea fish brains are extracted from the brains of deep-sea platinum and above fish phase. It has an immediate effect on fatigue recovery." Upon hearing Gao Feng's instructions, Lin Yuan could not help but roll his eyes. When Lin Yuan had spoken to Gao Feng on the phone previously, he had heard from Gao Feng that he would secretly pretend to be asleep whenever his family urged him to sleep. In the latter half of the night, he would secretly use the Star Web card to log into the Star Web. How could a person with such a routine tell him to sleep early? Speaking of which, they would go to Zhong Zhe's place for a meal at noon tomorrow. Tonight, they should be talking about the meal as well. The people in this small group had jointly established a force to develop the Abyss world. It could be said that they were all on the same side. Long Tao knew his identity as black. Therefore, he did not need to be apprehensive when speaking. Lin Yuan asked Gao Feng, "Gao Feng, you said you were looking for a guild club that could participate in the S tournament. Have you found it yet?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao pouted and said with some anger, "Before I became Teacher Cicada's disciple, I applied to a few B-rank clubs, but they all rejected me. I heard that White Devil left the Extreme Guild Club, so I wanted to give it a try. However, even a second-rate guild club like the Extreme Guild Club is picky about me." Chapter 1081. As Miao Ji spoke, the more she looked at Zheng Kaiyuan's broken teeth, the more her heart ached. At the same time, the anger in her heart began to surge. The anger finally piled up and turned into a thick killing intent. This killing intent was targeted at Sky City's city lord, the youth who knocked out Zheng Kaiyuan's teeth. In Miao Ji's opinion, her son, Zheng Kaiyuan, was a dragon among men. When he was 11 or 12 years old, he had displayed powerful creation master talent. Without even needing her to say anything, Zheng Kaiyuan's creation master talent had caught her elder sister's eye and been accepted as a disciple. At the end of the day, Zheng Kaiyuan had not had any opportunities because the Zheng family was just a veteran faction. Furthermore, it was not a top faction. Not long ago, her son had the opportunity to participate in a top event like the Nyx Assembly and immediately seized the opportunity. Miao Zhua and Miao Qi had gotten into trouble and been kicked out of the Nyx Assembly. Instead, her son, Zheng Kaiyuan, had stayed in the Nyx Assembly and brought back the news that the Radiance Federation's Class 6 Abyss Rift was about to open. Her son, Zheng Kaiyuan, had even become friends with the Moon Empress disciple at the Nyx Assembly. He had even gotten the Moon Empress disciple's contact information. One had to know that a mobile phone number was an extremely private thing for people with status. People with status would not leave their contact information for ordinary acquaintances. After Miao Ji married into the Zheng family, her father, Zheng Ji, did not allow her to return to the Miao family even during the New Year. When she called for New Year's greetings, Zheng Ji would not pick up the phone. This made Miao Ji feel a trace of hostility toward the Miao family. For so many years, Miao Ji had been longing to return to the Miao family, but there was no way. Now that Miao Ji had returned to the Miao family, she was personally welcomed by her father, Miao Zhinshan. As his daughter, Miao Ji knew how snobbish and indifferent Miao Zhinshan was. Therefore, Miao Ji's mentality changed when her father personally welcomed her back to the Miao family. She felt that the Miao family now had to rely on her son, Zheng Kaiyuan. Before Miao Ji got married, she was rather polite to some of the old servants of the Miao family. Now that she had returned to the Miao family, she put on the airs of a master. Miao Ji's words made Zheng Kaiyuan's eyes light up. If he could really make Elder Han, who had always been by his grandfather's side, represent the Zheng family to fight the Sky City. Given Old Han's 4th Tribulation creation strength at Monarch Class 5, there was nothing for him to worry about. With Old Han's strength, he could even easily annihilate some of the lower-ranked peak forces. Not to mention a sky castle that had just been established not long ago. However, Miao Zhi's words caused the old man, who was pacing in the room, to stiffen. Then, the old man's expression suddenly darkened, revealing an extremely displeased expression. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had turned to look at Miao Zhi and her joyful expression, couldn't help but have a complicated look in his eyes. Zheng Ji was a peak-level emperor stage powerhouse, as well as the Zheng family's old patriarch. His heart and soul were devoted to the Zheng family's development. Zheng Ji had spent a lot of effort fighting with the other 2 veteran forces in Indigo Azure City all year round. Zheng Ji was developing the Zheng family with great effort mainly for the continuation of the Zheng family's foundation. At the same time, it was also for his own reputation. Zheng Ji had always taken a steady path to develop the Zheng family. He was afraid that some problems would cause the other 2 veteran forces in Indigo Azure City to launch a counterattack against the Zheng family. Zheng Ji had agreed to Zheng Kaiyuan's suggestion to have a blood oath duel with Sky Castle this time because he had already regarded Zheng Kaiyuan as the next family patriarch after so many years. Zheng Ji was now in his 70s and 80s, but he was still the Zheng family patriarch. It was because his son was useless. However, his son was good at seducing women. He had even seduced Miao Zhi from the top faction Beast Creation Garden. At first, Zheng Ji had been quite optimistic about his daughter-in-law, Miao Zhi. Later, Zheng Ji realized that after Miao Zhi married over, she didn't bring much of the Miao family's resources to the Zheng family. Even the Miao family didn't recognize Miao Zhi as a member of the Miao family. Later, when Zheng Kaiyuan was born, Miao Qi accepted Zheng Kaiyuan as a disciple. Through Miao Qi's connections, the Miao family began to take out some resources to support the Zheng family. If the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden was willing to support Li Yun Miao Can like how Coiled Dragon Valley had done back then, the Zheng family would have been in a different situation in Indigo Azure City. Indigo Azure City was ranked at the bottom of the 36 major cities and didn't have a top faction. If the Zheng family could borrow the Miao family's power to annex the other 2 families and integrate Indigo Azure City's resources. After a few years of development, the Zheng family could become a new nobleman among the top factions. At the thought of this, Zheng Ji sighed. His 3 grandsons were all geniuses. His eldest grandson, Zheng Keiding, was now a Radiance 100 sequence member and didn't put his mind on the development of the family's faction. In fact, Zheng Ji's earliest choice for the Zheng family patriarch was his youngest grandson, Zheng Kaiyan. Zheng Kaiyan was born with 6 fingers. He had been smart since young and had a lot of ideas. At a young age, he had shown his passion and talent for faction development. However, because of that accident that could not be investigated, Zheng Kaiyan had been in a wheelchair forever. He had also started to become eccentric and moody. For the sake of his reputation, Zheng Ji couldn't let a person in a wheelchair who couldn't stand up become the Zheng family patriarch. In the end, Zheng Ji's gaze was still on Zheng Kaiyuan. However, Zheng Kaiyuan was more passionate about the Miao family than the Zheng family. Ever since the Nix assembly ended, he hadn't returned to the Zheng family. Zheng Ji agreed to carry out the Blood Oath Extreme Duel with Sky City because of the Miao family's 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm experts who had 2 Pinnacle Myth 3 phase. It was because of these 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm experts who had 2 Pinnacle Myth 3 phase that Zheng Ji chose to take the risk. Zheng Ji always felt that it wasn't safe to target Sky City because of the Creation Master resources that Sky City possessed. However, Zheng Kaiyuan's attitude towards the Blood Oath Extreme Duel with Sky City was abnormally firm. In the end, Zheng Kaiyuan had to use his relationship with the Moon Empress disciple to finally convince Zheng Ji. It was definitely a good thing for the Zheng family patriarch, Miao Zhinshan, to let Elder Han help the Zheng family in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. However, Miao Zhi said to let Elder Han replace a member of the Zheng family. What was the Zheng family? Wasn't the Zheng family a family? Furthermore, he was the only member of the Zheng family who would participate in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. If he was replaced, The Zheng family would send 3 members of the Miao family to participate in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. The other factions could spectate the Blood Oath Extreme Duel at the Extreme Duel. If the Zheng family only sent one of their own, it would be inevitable for people to talk behind their backs. If the Zheng family didn't send a single member, others would probably think that the Miao family had swallowed the Zheng family. Where would the Zheng family and himself put their reputation? End of this chapter. Chapter 1082. The Blood Oath battle consisted of 3 matches. The winner of the previous match could choose not to leave the arena and continue fighting. With Old Han around, Miao Ji could suggest to replace the other 2 peak emperors of the Miao family with someone from the Zheng family. From Miao Ji's words, Zheng Ji knew that Miao Ji didn't think of him or the Zheng family. Even though Miao Ji was the daughter-in-law of the Zheng family, her surname was still Miao. But when he saw Zheng Kaiyuan, who was being groomed as the head of the Zheng family, he was delighted and didn't think of the Zheng family at all. Zheng Ji seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. Even his aura and sharpness had disappeared. Zheng Ji sighed. Forget it. How long can these old bones of mine manage the Zheng family? In the end, the younger generation of the Zheng family is the future of the Zheng family. But could the younger generation of the Zheng family really give the Zheng family a future? Zheng Ji suddenly thought of Zheng Kaiyan. If it was Zheng Kaiyan, he definitely wouldn't stand on the Zheng family's side and consider the Zheng family's problems. Zheng Kaiyuan turned to look at his grandfather, Zheng Ji, who was pleasantly surprised. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had turned around, was stunned. He felt that his grandfather, Zheng Ji, gave him a different feeling, especially the way he looked at him. But Zheng Kaiyuan didn't think too much about it. Grandfather, why don't you come with us to find grandfather and see if he can get Old Han to help the Zheng family with the Blood Oath battle? Zheng Ji's cold heart died when he heard Zheng Kaiyuan's words. He had watched his grandson grow up. Did he expect him, the grandfather, to lower his voice and beg his grandfather? Zheng Ji tilted his head and looked at Zheng Kaiyuan. He seemed to be trying to figure out how Zheng Kaiyuan had thought of this and said it. At this moment, Zheng Ji felt that the future of the Zheng family was a joke. Forget it, I won't go. If you want to go, you can go. However, this old man must represent the Zheng family in the Zheng family's Blood Oath Extreme battle. With that, Zheng Ji turned and left the room. Zheng Ji's words made Miao Ji frown. She looked very unhappy. However, Zheng Kaiyuan immediately understood what was going on with his grandfather. Usually, Zheng Kaiyuan would have gone to explain the situation to his grandfather. But this time, Zheng Kaiyuan did not do so. In the past few days, he had been treated as a distinguished guest in the Miao family. Even the Miao family's previous eldest young master, Miao Zhua, and the current eldest young master, Miao He, had to be polite to him because of his identity as the Moon Empress disciple and friend. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had been in such an environment for a long time, couldn't help but look down on the Zheng clan, a veteran force that he was born in. He had also lost some of the respect he had for his grandfather, the head of the family. When Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan arrived at the Zheng family's main residence to meet Miao Zhenshan was guiding Miao He on his creation master homework. After Miao Zhua was crippled, Miao Zhenshan single-handedly trained Miao He. He wanted to train Miao He so that Miao He's abilities were worthy of his status as the Miao family's young master. He had just hosted a welcoming banquet for the Zheng family, and now Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan were asking to see him. This caused Miao Zhenshan to frown. During this period of time, if there was anyone in the Miao family who disliked Zheng Kaiyuan the most, it would definitely not be Miao Zhua, who had been ridiculed by Zheng Kaiyuan. Nor was it Miao He, who had been tricked by Zheng Kaiyuan. It was the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden's current family head, Miao Zhenshan. Miao Zhua didn't even need to say anything when Zheng Kaiyuan ridiculed Miao Zhua. The rest of the Miao family would report this matter to Miao Zhenshan. The conflict that had happened in the Spirit Food Pavilion that day was of great importance. Zheng Kaiyuan didn't say anything, but Miao He didn't dare to hide it. Miao He took the risk of being punished and told Miao Zhenshan everything. He had also specifically mentioned how Zheng Kaiyuan had hit him while he was down in front of Lin Yuan and had nearly burned him. Zheng Kaiyuan's behavior toward Miao He could be said to have violated Miao Zhenshan's taboo. Miao Zhenshan almost couldn't tolerate Zheng Kaiyuan anymore. However, according to Miao He, Lin Yuan had indeed invited Zheng Kaiyuan to his home as a guest. This meant that the relationship between Zheng Kaiyuan and Lin Yuan was really like what Zheng Kaiyuan had said. It might even be better than what Zheng Kaiyuan had said. Therefore, Miao Zhenshan suppressed his dislike for Zheng Kaiyuan and specially brought Miao He to the conference hall to receive Zheng Kaiyuan and Miao Ji, who had come to visit late at night. Miao He, who was following behind Miao Zhenshan, revealed a sarcastic smile when he saw that his grandfather was heading to the guest hall instead of the study room. Zheng Kaiyuan was so arrogant, but in his grandfather's heart, he was just a guest. It was the same for his aunt, Miao Ji. A married daughter was like spilled water. If this water was splashed into the imperial garden, it would be stained with some of the imperial garden's value. However, if this water was splashed on the weeds, who would be willing to scoop up this dirty water? After Miao Zhenshan received Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan in the living room, Zheng Kaiyuan and Miao Ji left the living room excitedly. After seeing Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan leave, Miao He couldn't help but ask, "Grandfather, are you really going to let Grandfather Han help the Zheng family in the Blood Oath Extreme duel?" How can a veteran faction like the Zheng family be worthy of Grandfather Han's help? Moreover, the Miao family is so great at this time, and the Zheng family is sending out such high-end combat power. It is really too conspicuous. After saying that, Miao He didn't continue. Miao He knew that if he continued he would have to mention his aunt, Miao Qi, and big brother, Miao Zhua. No matter how he looked at it, he would have the suspicion of trampling on his own family. Miao He's words made Miao Zhenshan's expression darken. How could Miao Zhenshan not know this? After the Nix assembly, many top factions that had worked with the Miao family before had a drastic change in attitude towards the Miao family. Many of their collaborations were forced to stop, causing the Miao family to suffer significant losses. At this moment, it would not be a wise choice for the Miao family to do anything. However, Miao Zhenshan still had to rely on Zheng Kaiyuan to maintain his relationship with the Moon Empress disciple. The Coiling Dragon Valley had obtained so many golden lotus brocade stalks, and the most uncomfortable was the Beast Creation Garden, which had a hostile relationship with the Coiling Dragon Valley. The Beast Creation Garden was originally at a disadvantage compared to the Coiling Dragon Valley. If they still couldn't obtain the golden lotus brocade stalks, the Beast Creation Garden would be left behind by the Coiling Dragon Valley. In Miao Zhenshan's opinion, if he followed Zheng Kaiyuan's wishes, Zheng Kaiyuan would also try his best to help the Miao family close the distance with Lin Yuan. Recently, the Miao family had sent a few apology letters to the Spirit Guard's young palatial lord, wanting to apologize for Miao Zhua's incident in Yeyang Palace. However, these apology letters that were sent to the Spirit Guards were like leaves falling into the water. They didn't even cause a ripple. As long as the Spirit Guard's young palatial lord didn't reply, Miao Zhenshan's heart wouldn't be at ease. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.